Okay, good stuff. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the MTD Marathon live. We're back for the afternoon session, and we're joined by Kevin and
Should we
Craig
try
this
that again?
afternoon.
Should we
Oh
try that
gosh,
again?
I'm
Take two.
done. No,
Yeah.
please.
See,
Now I'm
this
gonna
is why I
have
do
to
the
edit this.
intros. This is
Yes.
why I do the intros because Robyn's had a long day. In all fairness, she did not have a single break from the minute we started to lunchtime. I nipped out twice. Robyn didn't. But so, guys, we are on to session number two, the afternoon session. It's a great honor to have everybody that's here in the chat. The whole focus on today is about getting your clients signed up for MTD, talking in the group chat about MTD. If you've got letters of engagement to do, if you've got things that you've been putting off, get them done this afternoon and listen to some great guests talk about their journey with MTD. Now, Craig, we haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet. However, you are the vice president of my governing body, the Association of Accounting Technicians. So for me, this is quite a personal honour to have you come onto this. So thank you very much for joining us.
No worries at all. Yeah, it's really nice to meet you. And yeah, always great to reach out and have a connection with all AAT members.
Oh, thank you very much. And Kevin, we have met a couple of times. We've shared a drink together. You are the man behind Untied, which is, I'd like to say, quite cutting edge technology, the stuff that you're doing. You're always pushing the envelope. You're always trying to see what you can develop. And it's great to see Louise is in the chat. And for anyone that doesn't remember, we started NTD together with software back in February. And Kevin's Untied demo was the first one that we did. And in that demo, the question came from Louise about foreign income and things like that, wasn't it? There was a few things, and Kevin was open and said, "We haven't quite built that yet, but let's have a chat about it." And you went away, didn't you? And you had a good chat, Louise. And you two have been. It's great to see the software side of things developing like that. So, welcome, Kevin.
Nice to see you. So Louise actually said that I need to make sure that I'm dressing up properly. And I thought I would dress up in the way that most people see me, which is with my cycle helmet. Because every time I turn up at an event, whether it is the roadshows that HMRC was doing, or Accountex, or anywhere when we went to Fab, I'm always on my bicycle. So I thought I would bring my cycle helmet with me as well. I can't quite match those people who were wearing tuxedos. It looked like that some steward come straight from the event last night in Edinburgh. But this is the best that I can do.
We
I'm
love
sad I can't join you. This is the only day I've not cycled into work. I've gone posh and gone for a shirt. Whether I could have got my helmet on as well, and we could have sat here having a good chat about the amazing, how great it is to cycle.
Absolutely. But we've got to talk MTD today. Maybe we do another session about cycling in accountancy. So Craig, I'd love to get your perspective on how things have been going for the AAT and working with members with MTD. How's that sort of been going along?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly going, and it has been seemingly for months and months and months, right? It's just rumbling along nicely. Every week goes by that there's sessions for AAT members to kind of be part of through CPD and webinars and links with directly with HMRC and links with kind of software providers that are kind of maybe more at the front end of it. There's been an awful lot of opportunity dropping into members and students' inboxes on a weekly basis. There's also the AAT MTD Centre on the website. So if any member is particularly stuck about what to do for MTD, there's a great plethora of information there to help them guide them as well. So it's not been sat on the back burner for ages. It's definitely been at the forefront of kind of the support that AAT has put in place over the last year or so.
How have you seen things change? So, as a professional body, have you seen attitudes from members change on
Oh,
MTD? What would you
yeah.
how would you sum up the feelings towards MTD from your
I
members?
think that's a very interesting question. I think certainly from the conversations that I've had with members, it's been known for so long that kind of any kind of animosity towards it is probably long gone, right? It's the whole VAT system coming in probably took more of the brunt of that annoyance. Whereas this one, it's been such a long time for and a lead in of people being aware of what is happening. They've seen certainly the conversations I've had, people have seen the successes of how that now works with the MTD system. Maybe it wasn't quite as coherent at the beginning, but now it seems to work relatively seamlessly. And I think a lot of people are kind of hoping that the software providers and HMRC have learned a lot of lessons from those early VAT days, and now this one here should be quite seamlessly. Certainly, the conversations I've had recently with people, It's very much about the kind of the conversation with their partners and their clients, and having conversation with people who just didn't know about it. Not from anybody's particular fault, but it's just where when they're as an accountant or a bookkeeper or a practitioner, you get in touch with your partner. A lot of AAT members I've spoken with have done that months and months and months ago. And still at that point, they hadn't received information from HMRC about what is coming, or they haven't read it because you see that brown envelope and you might put it aside. And then there's also kind of I've certainly had people within my practice, potential new clients who've coming across to me because their current accountant or bookkeeper that they're working with hasn't necessarily been on top of it. So there's a great opportunity for AAT members and licensed practitioners to really kind of support small business owners and landlords kind of with that perception. I think certainly from me and my business perspective, I'm very fortunate with the new system kind of coming in. I've literally got a handful of clients who are going to be affected by this first round. This time next year, I'm sure I'll be panicking a lot more about things because there'll be a larger number to work with. But and certainly a lot of members I've spoken with, they're not actually being that affected in the massive numbers as they were anticipating. A lot of sole traders, a lot of small business owners, they don't have that level of income. They're sitting at 30, 40, which is probably more likely going to have a bigger impact next year. So it's been a good journey. Loads of conversations by members and the community and students alike. I just kind of feel that certainly from who I'm speaking with, AAT members are ready for it and have been for ages.
That's good to hear.
Really good to hear. And Kevin, how about you? How have you seen perceptions of MTD change over your involvement, which has been vast, right?
My first meeting around Making Tax Digital was in 2016. So I've been on the journey now for 10 years, and I'm quite glad you called it a marathon today, because that's what it largely has been for many of us. And I think that what is really pleasing is the change, and Craig hinted at it, in the relationship with HMRC, that probably 2 or 3 years ago, I think I was not alone in being incredibly worried about Making Tax Digital, that HMRC and the software developer community were very much in different places. And credit to Craig and the team that he's put around him. Sorry, credit to Craig Ogilvie. Obviously, Craig Dyer, you also get full credit for this. But Craig Ogilvie has changed the dynamic. And I think there's been a very important shift in understanding at HMRC that this works through the success of software. We are effectively the front window on Making Tax Digital. And if people have a good experience with software, then they're going to have a good experience with Making Tax Digital. And importantly, we need to be able to work together to solve things. Untied was very early. So we were first live in 2020. And I'm going to be honest that things didn't work. But we've had a number of people who've been filing 25, 26, the first 3 people to file in the country for 25, 26 end of year, all used Untied to do that. And overall, the experience has been good. It hasn't been perfect, though. And again, this is where we need to be candid and say that the working relationship that we have with HMRC helps us resolve those things that aren't necessarily as we would expect. There have been things that haven't carried through between different calculations. There have been updates. There have been fudges that we've needed to make, because the only time you know much of this works is when you go live. I think that actually is something where there is a wide range of understanding across the system. We have, as Untied, a very comprehensive Making Tax Digital product, which includes UK property, foreign property, as well as multiple trades. But still, we get people saying, well, I want to be able to test all of it before I actually decide on the software. Much of these things can't be tested until you actually come in. We could make stuff up and give up sort of random forms where you put in numbers, but you need to be able to commit. And I think the decision around software is a really key one. A few things that I see are very positive around agents is the engagement. When we do onboarding with agents, they're interested in how some of the agent capability works. But I'm also aware there's some agents who are saying, look, the quarterly updates are going to be the responsibility of the client and not necessarily us as a practice. And I think agents really need to think about a few things around that. And the experience that we've got is to make sure that we're not building up problems later on in the year. So I would encourage agents to see if you can get direct access to the software that your clients are using. You want to be able to see the underlying records and to see how things have been categorized, or in our language, tagged. There may be some software, and Untied's one of those, where it's supporting not just the MTD income sources. So if you've got dividends, interest, and various other things, that's being carried through as well. And the best agents are really engaging with the way that software works. I also think that there's a difference in types of software where you have many products, the big brands that we all know and love, which have come very much from a small limited company background. But there are other products where we've come from a perspective of self-assessment, where we're looking at everything an individual has and trying to sort of make sure that you understand what's right for you there is going to be quite helpful. I realise I've gone on quite a lot, really. Ask me one question about MTD and I'll talk about the full 10 years. I can go on for 10 years about it. But things are a lot better. We're enjoying it. We love, actually, you mentioned Louise. Louise, after our first session, I think you were being polite, and she said, I don't want a software developer that just pisses up the wall. And I think that the relationship between an advisor, an agent, and the software can become really constructive and really positive. And when Louise and I started talking, we started to understand what we could do and what she was looking for. And I think this has been highly, highly successful, that she's made suggestions which have improved our product, not just for her clients, but for anyone that is in a similar need. We've got stuff now around foreign income. Today, we've made a new release, and we've always got new developments that we're doing. We've got a new release where now we've always had foreign currency bank transactions, but now you can add foreign currency manual transactions as well with built-in translation. And that's a direct result of a suggestion that came from Louise and one of her clients. And finding a software advisor relationship where improvements are always being made, I think helps everyone, including obviously the taxpayer at the end of this, which is what it's all about.
Do you find that there's still a lot of feeling around software developers, in that certainly somewhere I started from when I first, in that first webinar before starting Accountants Therapy, my thought was they're all a bunch of thieves. This is designed to make software people rich. And I have learned richer. I've learned a lot about that, and how the 10-year process has bankrupted a lot of people and been awful and terrible. And the more that we've included software in the conversation, the more I think we've all realized that was not true, or not true in the most part, because I don't think anyone would be upset with you for having a profit motive. Right? That's fair. You're allowed to have a profit motive over it, but the thought that it was completely to screw everyone over. Do you still find that attitude is out there? And do you find that a difficult attitude? And maybe to Craig as well, then, do you think your members feel that way, that MTD is designed just to make software rich?
It's certainly something that's come up in conversation over the last, about 18 months, for example. And I can vividly remember some conversations at some AAT events where members have been aggrieved by certain software companies putting adverts out that essentially nullify the need of an accountant or a bookkeeper for small businesses. And that is a dangerous precedent to set, because, as we all are likely to know, small business owners are brilliant at what they do, but they are not in it for the admin. They're not in it for the bookkeeping and the accountants and having that kind of level of knowledge that we have. People are going to make mistakes, and if they think they can just solely rely on a piece of software that has a small element of embedded AI in it and some rule making and things, but if their input is wrong, the bookkeepers and the accountants are going to have to swoop in at the end in even more of a mess at the year end. And that's certainly something that has come out over, like I said, over the last 12, kind of 18 months with various conversations I've had, is people being fearful that small sole traders and landlords and things are going to use that software in the wrong way, and it's actually going to cause them more problems down the line. So that's the biggest fear that kind of came out of it. Not necessarily the software have kind of manipulated the situation to make themselves richer, as you kind of alluded to, but definitely the more hands-on, holistic approach with the client base that they have is the biggest fear.
Do you think that's a fair fear, Kevin?
Yes. Yes. So I'm very much here for advocating responsible software development. My background is as a chartered accountant and chartered tax advisor. So I am looking at the way that we build our software and try and do it in a responsible way. It worries me in exactly the same way that Craig has just described, that some of these decisions can be felt to be straightforward when quite often they're not. We see two things. We often see people coming back saying, oh my goodness, your software is £130 including VAT a year. I'm looking for something for free. I'm going to find something for free. I don't care about quality. I don't care about whether you've come from a robust tax background. I don't care about security. All I want is for it to be free. And that really tells me that people have got the priorities in the wrong place. If you're looking for a van and you're going to be doing lots of mileage, you want a van that's going to stay on the road. And there will be free apps that work really well for other things. There are some legitimate free products within the Making Tax Digital environment. You've got to make sure that a product covers everything that you need. But as a little bit of a research exercise, as BASDA, which is the trade body where Jess Jensen and I, she's from Zero, co-chair the relevant industry group, we did a bit of work and we looked at the cost of providing the software. And it costs between £80 and £100 per account per year to keep that up and running. And this is based on looking at the larger vendors, so published material from people like Xero, QuickBooks, and various others, as well as private information that we got from some of the smaller vendors. So if something is not going to be at that level and it's not being bundled as part of another product, then I would question, well, where is the freeness really being is coming from? And you want something which is robust. The second thing is this question about advice. We don't offer advice, we offer information, and AI can quite easily blur the lines between one and the other, and people can start making mistakes very easily. We've had users who've left us because we haven't told them that they can claim their lunch every day. We have had others saying, well, why aren't you telling me I can claim such and such? And the answer quite often is because we are being cautious, but also you're not necessarily entitled to make those claims. And I do worry with the rate, with the rise of AI, how this is going to be coming out. Clearly, there's some people who don't need advisors because of their situation. There's a significant unrepresented community. Around about 50% of people in self-assessment aren't represented. But equally, I would always suggest to people, if they do have a significant question, to push them to a professional advisor and to look out for that as well.
Absolutely.
Craig's got his hand up. That's my favourite thing when someone puts their hand up. You can just interrupt.
Once a teacher, always a teacher. You've got to put your hand up to get attention. I mean, another thing that just from what Kevin was just saying there, kind of especially with the links with kind of AI, certainly a school of thought is about the banking software that's out there. So certain online only banks and banking apps and things have those links with MTD. How resilient are those going to be? Are they accurate? Are they just, is it a bit more of a gimmick to get more people to join their banking? Is it actually going to be fit for purpose? I think that's certainly a lot of fear around that as well, that certain small, especially price sensitive individuals who are maybe at the lower end of the MTD threshold, bringing in 20, 30,000 a year, are they going to be going, oh, if I join this bank, I get this MTD software that's for free. But again, they're not going to know what they're allowed to claim and what they're not. Yeah. And then there could be this series in a few years' time where there's loads of things in the news about individuals being told to repay things because they weren't eligible for making them.
It's been all over social media as well. Everybody is trying to oversimplify taxation. You see a video that says you can claim for this, and that might be specific to this particular person in industry, but we are educated and trained in our field to know that only that particular industry can claim for it. But the person that's never studied for taxation is going to take it at face value that they can claim for the same things as their mate down the road because they're a builder and they've bought steel cap boots, but the accountant sat behind a desk probably couldn't claim for steel cap boots because is it wholly exclusively? And that is what scares me with this. I feel like we're going down this perfect storm of misinformation on social media, oversimplification of how easy bookkeeping can be when actually it's a very difficult job and you've got to be good at it and understand a lot of rules and regulations. Everybody in a race to the bottom to save money, so they might go for pieces of software that aren't suitable for them. And we're not going to have this problem now. It's going to be in 3 years when HMRC opens the doors to inquiries and goes, right, we've got all this data, off we go. And I think there's going to be an absolute field day with particularly the lower turnover thresholds.
I
Kevin,
couldn't agree more.
how do you prep? How do you prep for that?
I mean, I certainly, from my perspective, being a small business owner, we have a lot of people who are very price sensitive, and you get new prospective clients come along, and the first question they're asking is, how cheap can I get this? What can you give me, and how cheap can I get it? And those two things don't always add up. And I think thinking about what are small business practices and accountants and bookkeepers, what are they offering? They're offering peace of mind, and you can't really put a price. I mean, we have to, but you can't really put a price on peace of mind, right?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily about that lower end price and racing to the bottom, which is just going to undermine an entire industry. It's about giving that added value back to the customer. We will sort this out. We will take care of your MTD. We do it through software X. You pay us this amount a year, and you don't need to worry about anything else. We will sort it out. And so many small businesses will just go, yeah, perfect. That's I don't one less thing for me to worry about. I can just concentrate on getting more clients in, getting more money into the business. You take care of all of that. And I think having a really strong relationship with a good, qualified, and licensed accountant and bookkeeper just works out significantly better in the long run.
And it goes back to valuing yourself, doesn't it? If you know what you're doing, you've done your research, you've got your product, like your product is you're selling to your clients that you're going to do X, Y, and Z. And if they turn around and say, I know I could get it cheaper by Dave down the pub or an advert I've seen on Facebook or something, don't try and match it. If you value yourself and you know it's going to cost you this much to produce that work, just stick to it. And I think that is
which is going to be
to
challenging, right? No, this is new for a lot of people out there, right? We've got, like I said, we've got a handful of people who are going to be hitting that first wave in the summer. I'm still not 100% confident with how to price for that as a practice owner, and I think that will kind of come in time when you realize how much work it kind of goes into it and everything. And it's very easy to convince yourself, oh, I'll do it for free. I'll try it out for this much. You hear about an accountant down the road who's charging X, oh, I'll go a little bit cheaper. But it's getting that value across that what you are doing is important. And I think that's really key. And again, having somebody who's qualified and licensed behind you is a really powerful tool.
I think that's gonna. Sorry, Kevin. Go on, Kevin.
No, go.
I was going to say, I think that's also going to come in later as well. I've seen in the wild, and actually a conversation recently I had with, I think a prospective new client was asking me about software, and I went through a normal set of options that I would, and I mentioned Untied. This is £130 a year, and they were like, exactly as you said, Kevin. They went, but there's free ones. I was like, oh, what? You're asking my professional opinion, and I'm telling you there's this very, very good, very inexpensive one. Why don't you just do that? And I absolutely know that they're going to go away and they're going to choose a free one. And I don't know, maybe they'll get on fine with it. It was a new client, so I don't know. I don't really know the ins and outs of the circumstances, but what I do know is that I've got to be very careful when those people come back and need help, that I don't water down my service and my value because they've chosen an inappropriate option. And the same for anyone that hasn't even taken advice at all. So maybe it's easier when you know that this person didn't listen to me. Therefore, I'm not going to be kind to them and reduce my prices or whatever. But even just remembering that when we get down the line and we're talking to these people that haven't taken advice at any point and chosen an option that is inappropriate for them because they were looking at the price point and nothing else, it's sad because part of that is marketing. Part of that is that they've been drawn in by that marketing, but it's not our problem. And I think as an industry, we really need to get behind each other in having that. Tom's already said, value yourself. We often end our slides with a slide that says value yourself, but we really need to drum that into ourselves to remember that we do still need to make a profit somewhere, and that's, an unfortunate consequence of MTD. But Kevin, I interrupted you, please.
So, as an aside, I don't think this has been HMRC's finest moment either, because they have aggressively said that we expect there to be free products without explaining how the cost of those free products will be covered. Short of, as Richard has said in the chat, there is no such thing as free software.
Absolutely.
Someone is paying somewhere. So if you don't know where this is being paid, then it's somewhere within your data or something else. There may be advertising, there may be other bits and pieces. Your data may be being used. We don't know. I also think as a software developer community, we've got a responsibility that what I don't want is in 3 years' time, you say to me, Kevin, we're on another call. I'm shocked that all these products that were £7 a month or £10 a month initially, they've now doubled over the course of the last 3 years. And we've got to make sure that there isn't a sudden hockey stick that prices go up once people have been locked in. The comment that you made, Robyn, about the person chasing a free product, will you as an advisor have access as an agent to their free product?
Well,
Because
not bank ones at the moment. This is something we were talking about earlier, that's a huge concern, that a lot of the bank ones do not have agent access.
And that's going to be more burden and cost for you. One of the peculiar things that I see is that people who are, and I would say comfortably off, and this is not meant to be a value judgment around some of this stuff, is a lot of people who are earning over £50,000 from property, whatever it might be, think of themselves as very small. And they say, well, I've only got 3 properties. I ought to have this for free. I'm not a large landlord with a portfolio of 20, 30, 40 properties. But it needs to be proportionate. And if you're looking for something at that level, it's amazing to me and interesting that people are still very, very price sensitive, looking to shave the absolute amount off rather than valuing the software that is being put out there. And how do we as a community get people to value that software?
But then this is an interesting point when we come back to the regulations being built on gross income rather than profits, right? Because there can be a vast difference between somebody with a £50,000 of gross turnover versus even somebody with £20,000 of gross turnover, and the one with 20,000 may well have a higher profit than your 50,000. It's going back to the point on universal credit, that you can still have somebody turning over 50,000 that is on universal credit because they may have a high cost of sales. So it's a tricky one because it is going to be by an individual basis, isn't it? But I completely get your point that it is frustrating when you can quite clearly see that that person is an intended mandated person, if you like. That I think the intention was always there, that this was for people with a side hustle of some kind or additional income rather than it being their sole income in some ways.
I think I think we mentioned before that we personally. Sorry.
You go. It's fine. You go.
We personally fund Untied for those people who really need it. So homeless people we funded Untied for, and various other things. And that's just effectively a no questions asked policy that we have. So if people really are in financial difficulty, we do support it. But interestingly, HMRC wouldn't allow us to be listed as free on that basis because our criterion is need rather than something else. We weren't able to be listed on that basis. But the other thing which I think is important for agents to be recognizing is that suddenly there is a new party in this relationship, and that's the software. And the clients, the taxpayers, are asking questions of the software, and sometimes we don't know that there is an agent in play as well. And we've got to make sure that the responses that we give are consistent, and that's a real challenge. What we don't want is the agent and the software to be played off against each other, because quite often there are 2 ways to be doing things, aren't there? It doesn't mean we're right. It doesn't mean you're right or wrong. It's just there are 2 ways we can all drive on the left, or we can all drive on the right. But what you don't want is software says drive on the left and you say drive on the right, and it all goes wrong. So I think if agents understand how to use software, so we've got a view for Untied for the construction industry scheme. We've changed our position. We're now simply saying to people, just tag what you receive. Is that Tom waving? You in the same boat?
We've
just
got
introducing Chris and Paul. They've just joined. Sorry, I'm just waving to them. Sorry,
okay.
Kevin. Didn't mean to distract you.
we're saying for CIS, just take what you receive, and we'll worry about the CIS deductions at the end of the year. Now, quite rightly, an accountant might want to do, an advisor might want to do something entirely different around that. Anyway, so there's just another party in there.
That collaboration it comes back to that collaboration being really important, really useful. And now we have three software vendors and a professional body in the chat. Welcome Paul, welcome Chris. What we've been doing, and I think you've been in the chat for a little while, so you'll have seen this. If I could ask each of you to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your MTD journey so far. Paul, do you want to go first?
I can do. Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. I'm Paul Lodder, VP of Accounting and Product Strategy at Dext. I've been at Dext 5 years. Prior to that, I was in practice for 21 years. And our MTD journey, I would say, has been a roller coaster over the years. But it's all coming good. It's all coming together. And for us at Dext, we focus on everything up to the quarterly updates.
Good stuff. Chris? Do you even need to introduce yourself? And if you don't use the words Mr. MTD, then you've come on.
So Chris Downing, open brackets, MTD Downing. So accountant by trade, like Paul, 19 years in the profession, partner of a firm before I got tapped on the shoulder by Sage. And next month, I'm celebrating 8 years at being at Sage. So really, I've experienced not just MTD for income tax, but also that year leading up to MTD for VAT, really understanding the changes, the challenges, but also more importantly, at the end of the day, when there is a deadline, you can rely on accountants or bookkeepers to deliver at that deadline. And even though, let's say, engagement was, let's say, somewhat low in the testing year, it's all about opening up the pipes, opening up the doors in April in the next couple of months, and people are going to be delivering on it. And I think one of the key things about this day is actually just showing, let's say, the ease of accessibility to the software vendors, the engagement from HMRC, but also the reality is, though we've got lovely 315,000 people signed up, we still need to sign up 9,000 per working day until the 7th of August. And it's still a big lift to do so.
Goodness, that's a stat, isn't it? You say about us pulling together and that we'll get there in the end and that you can depend on accountants, etc., and those in practice to get it done. Here's a question for all of you. What do you think the biggest cost for those in practice is over MTD? What do you think will be the biggest difficulty? Who wants to go first on that one?
I'll ask Craig this one first, because Craig is I would say
Craig
the man with the finger on the pulse in practice.
I mean, from pricing is probably key. Certainly from a lot of the AAT sessions I've attended over the last kind of 18 months.
So a profit drain.
Yeah, possibly. And that was something that kind of a lot of questions kind of came out of those the sessions that have been run by Sage over the last couple of years for MTD. So thank you for that, Chris. They are, yeah, that's certainly getting the pricing right and just not doing too much. Having scope drift is a massive kind of burden for those. I think in terms of the software costs, I mean, if you can work with new clients who are happy to buy into a software package and pay the cost themselves, and you can submit. And I'm thinking about kind of with kind of major ones, but also probably the biggest software increase will be those clients who don't want or need a bookkeeping piece of software in that same capacity as others, and having to have a standalone kind of tax entity to be able to submit return, or not return submissions, sorry, I should say. So I think those two, kind of getting the pricing right, but also kind of additional software costs, are probably the biggest thing. It's also the time. Like the people who have not signed up with any kind of pilot scheme over the last kind of 12 months, or people who maybe haven't attended some of the really good HMRC seminars that are out there, and like testing groups and things like that. You just don't know. You don't know, and you don't know what you don't know. So getting in there early and getting an idea as to what the likelihood of the workload is going to be like for an individual, at least then that will inform you more to be able to make the right choices on your pricing and how to stagger things. I would like to drop back to kind of the whole free software bit. For me, if a new client came through the door and they were like, I'm using this free piece of software to do my MTD, that's a huge red flag for me. And I would actively avoid taking on that client. I I want to know that this client is using trustworthy software that's going to make my job easier, and not 12 months down the line, it's a load of rubbish. They haven't used it properly, and then I've got to charge them an extra few £100 to sort out all the mess that they've done.
What
So
if that what if that free software is Sage? Sage,
I,
so Sage offer free.
yeah, we know our other softwares are available, obviously.
You're not talking so much
Certain
about
softwares
Sage
are very
offering,
good,
though, are
and
you?
they're very
You're
good in
talking about a piece of software that's been built and only marketed as being free, whereas I
Yeah,
think the
I'm only
Sage
being.
offering
yeah.
with the bank connection is a different animal, isn't it?
I think that, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean that to come across quite as aggressively as I meant. As
It's
I
not my
said,
fault, is it?
what I mean is there is a substantial difference, isn't there,
Yeah,
between reputable software that maybe we've heard of that have a free offering
yeah.
versus those challengers that are coming in, and particularly we've already spoken about some
I
of the
think you're right.
banks.
There's that clear divide between the two, right? And I think it's down to, qualified and licensed professionals, as we are, to make that distinguishment between what is going to be good for the client and good for us as a practice, and what isn't, and having a clear line drawn in the sand, because at some point in the future, it's going to cost somebody. It's either you as a practice owner are going to absorb that cost for sorting out that mess and lower your profit, or you're going to give them a massive bill. And either way, nobody is happy with that situation.
Mm.
Fine. Kevin?
So two things. I mean, first of all, I think we really need to make sure that quality of the advisor market is properly maintained. And credit to HMRC, they're doing a lot around this, because it's really easy now for anyone to call themselves an accountant, put out a product. And I, despite having qualified as an accountant and being a chartered tax advisor, do not hold myself out as such because I'm not in practice. And the peculiar thing is someone without that qualification is able to use those terms as an accountant, and that's a peculiar anomaly of the system. And credit to HMRC, they're trying to sort of tighten up what the advisory market is, and AI and other tools are going to just change that. In terms of the biggest cost, the one thing I would say that is going to distinguish between those clients that are easy to support and those that are not is whether they link their bank accounts. And if you can get your clients to connect their bank accounts to software, whether it's free, high quality software or paid high quality software, you're going to find it a lot easier to be supporting them. I would argue they don't need to be using a separate business bank account, but we could be doing that. But there are lots of things there that will actually reduce the cost. I'm also seeing Louise has just asked a question: what are the future developments in the softwares and the chats at the moment? And I think that's an important thing as well, in terms of the relationship, how we continue to develop. And for us, although we've been working on this for 8 or 9 years, we need to make sure that we continue to develop new things. So, I mean, from our point of view, we've already got receipt scanning, but we're going to have effectively a place where people can put all their documents. All of that gets processed and automatically matched to those things that they've tagged. We've got new invoicing capability. We've already got that, and it needs to keep evolving, I think. And again, that comes back to the high quality point. This isn't a put something out and leave it, because there are always changes in tax, as we know. It took 4 minutes yesterday for one of our users to say that we hadn't updated the mileage rates to the 50p the 55p that Rachel Reeves announced yesterday.
As if you should have known before. You clearly weren't following her on TikTok, Kevin. That's where you find out.
That is our fault. Yeah, I'm sure that everybody else had updated theirs already.
Well, someone mentioned last night in the chat. Remember, we did the software speed dating, Kevin. I think Paul and Chris, you were involved in that as well. They said, "Is the matrix up to date for what software vendors can do?" And I was quite blunt. I said, "No, it isn't, because they are updating their software so quickly at the moment. I physically can't keep up. Robyn can't keep up." And I think, Chris and Paul, I saw you both at Accountex. I think I spoke to you guys 2 weeks beforehand, and the amount of rollouts you've done in those 2 weeks as well. And Kevin, you're the same. I can't keep up with it all. You guys are just rolling stuff out constantly. And my question for you, we'll start with you first, Paul. Is that because you're still having to wait for HMRC in a lot of cases to roll something out, so you as the software vendor can then build the final bit?
There's some things that we have to wait for HMRC on, but there's other things that actually aren't reliant upon HMRC. It depends in terms of the workflows that we're considering. So, but the way we develop, the way we can actually create a setup using AI now is super, super quick. I was speaking to the team the other day, and within 10 minutes, we'd had a mock-up of how it could work, what it could look like. It's so much quicker to do the coding now than ever before. So AI is helping us move faster. There's always going to be some stumbling blocks. There's always going to be things that slow us down, whether we're waiting for HMRC to provide an update on the APIs or whether it's something else that we want to focus on. But I can only see it going in one direction. But the challenge is, I think, now is what to prioritize, because there is so much that can potentially be done. And everyone wants something. Everyone wants something different most of the time. To Kevin's point earlier about the 55p rate, we had that come through very, very quickly, and I had actually seen it as well, which was good. But within half an hour of that, we were being asked, can you make sure you don't change the rates? Because as a business, we don't want to pay the 55p rate. We will stick with the 45p rate or something lower. So trying to meet the needs of everybody is always going to continue to be the challenge, but with AI we can move faster.
How about you, Chris?
Yeah.
What would
I think meeting the needs of everyone is the very important factor, because there's one thing looking at the capabilities, which one is ticking off on the HMRC software portal, but they're just high-level themes to the basic needs of making tax digital. But actually, the needs are the accountant, of the bookkeeper, because we want to reduce the friction of one in terms of engaging and working with the client, speeding up the processing and the review of data, but it's also the overall end-to-end workflow of what making tax digital is. That's the bigger theme, and that's where software can really lean in to actually sort of save time and create greater efficiency. But also it's the fact that when we think about MTD, clearly digital record keeping is the key theme, but we need to be thinking about the desirability of software for the small business owner, because a small business owner operates in all different shapes and sizes, their needs vary, and therefore some of the themes which you do see from the various software providers is actually very niche elements of capability, which gets a small business owner excited. So, for example, we launched our payments agent within Sage Sole Trader a couple of weeks ago. And what this means is, let's say the business owner is able to talk to their phone, raise an invoice verbally, send it off to the customer, send it a payment link, and also, more importantly, tap to pay. So just imagine the plumber literally turns up to the customer, raises the invoice to the phone, taps to pay. That's the desirability to improve digital record keeping, which then obviously makes it life easier for the accountant bookkeeper saying, I think you should be using digital record keeping tools rather than an Excel spreadsheet, because it's the value that you get.
love that?
Sensible, very sensible comments. It has come to that time again where we need to ask Kevin and Craig for their final comments, because the time for their session is up. Oh, it looked like Kevin was looking at the clock then going, really? It's been lovely. Thank you very, very much for joining us today. Could you give us some final closing comments, whether that is just something that you'd like to tell people about MTD, or whether you can tell us your next steps with MTD, or some bit of advice? Kevin, do you want to go first? Oh, have we lost Kevin? We've lost your sound, Kevin.
Oh no.
No, I was
You're back.
panicking before when you said it. Time's nearly up, because I had an alert on my my microphone. I thought my final word would get missed. Look, it's really lovely. I think that the key thing about the success of making tax digital isn't just about the software that people are going to be using to file. It's also going to be about the software that you use to manage the clients and to manage your obligations and your workflows within your organization. And that's certainly, as Untied, something we're spending a lot of time thinking about. There are lots of changes in terms of agent login coming in, multi-factor authentication, that sort of stuff, and being on top of that. So in terms of our future direction, which is the question you asked, we're doing a lot around platforms to manage all of your MTD clients, whatever software they're using, thinking about how that will interact with some of the changes as well that all agents are going to be facing in terms of engaging with HMRC. And we want to talk to agents. That's probably the bottom line. If you've got something where you're wondering it, just drop us an email, and we would love to sit down. And that's worked for Louise, and we hope it can for those others who are just wondering at the moment.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for joining, and thank you for all your help in accountants therapy as well. Craig, how about you?
Two things, one with my practice manager hat on and one with my AAT hat on. I was just looking at some stats now that only so 3/4 of people eligible for signing up for this first wave are yet to sign up. That is a huge amount of scope of work out there for small business, small practice owners and things. Like that's a lot of money out there that can be done to support people. So get tapping up, get advertising. And then secondly, from kind of the AAT perspective, there's been so much training and support in place for AAT members and licensed members that AAT members are ready for this. If you're out there, if somebody's out there and they're looking for a new accountant or bookkeeper to help them through MTD, making sure they've got that AAT accreditation is going to be a real big win for them because we are ready.
Nice
Absolutely.
to hear. Thank you
Thank
both
you, gents.
very much. We'll see you
Thank
again
you.
soon.
This afternoon.
Bye bye. Right, so I'm conscious that I managed to get a really negative question in, as usual, the biggest costs for accounting practices. But I think maybe it's nice to start this with you, Paul, and you, Chris, with what do you think the biggest win is for agents or for you guys as software? What have you seen as the biggest wins with MTD?
The biggest wins have yet to be seen because let's be honest, we're going through a huge amount of transition and change and onboarding. But what we have seen from accountants and bookkeepers who've been saying, wow, my client's now using digital bookkeeping tools. I've now got access to the information. And really it comes down to the dream, the aspiration is trying to remove that December and January rush, because that's the inevitability which we're aiming for, trying to smooth out the workflow throughout the whole year and really just improve the quality of the information and remove the chasing. Because of anything from the research that Sage continuously does with the profession is the vast majority of your time is just spent chasing for information. And that chasing information is from manual information. So the more digitalization we can encourage, whether that's software, bank feeds, or just having the banks being more collaborative, that basically removes the time spent on chasing information and really just working with it and also meeting the needs of all those more regular deadlines we're surfacing.
Paul?
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I still think many firms are still trying to fight, trying to go through all of the headache of it. So I wouldn't say many firms have seen many wins at the moment, but I do believe the wins will come through. Where I am starting to see some early green shoots is actually around the billing pattern. Many firms are still billing on an annual basis, and actually, the firms I was speaking to at Accountex has started that transition to either monthly or quarterly. I think that's a win for the agent, for the firms, as well as clients, because I think it spreads out that cash flow challenge. I still believe that's early days. I still think there's lots of challenges around pricing and actually having those conversations with clients. But, the challenge still at the moment, and it goes back to the earlier question on where the biggest cost is. I still think the biggest cost is on change management and the time that is spent that you need to invest to educate and support. So I think we're coming through that, all of that admin, all of the setup, all of the, not the education. I think that's going to continue. But I think we're starting to see the benefits, to Chris's point, around sort of digital records and hopefully going forward, less chasing.
On that basis of time spent is we did a piece of research literally 4 weeks ago, the hidden hours of the profession, 1,000 accounts and bookkeepers. And the reality is the profession is spending less time on compliance. They want to spend more time on compliance. That's where they make money from. But generally, they're spending less time on compliance, about 48%. More time spent on admin, bureaucracy, and out of the brief work, which is technology adoption and change management. And that's some of the challenges the profession is continuously facing. But also you're optimistic, the fact what AI can bring in terms of saving time. And I think that's the theme, is the fact that accounts and bookkeepers are spending less time on what they enjoy and are confident on. And therefore it's a case of legislation changes are always happening, but actually how do you mitigate that change management? And quite often it's because we're not quite aware, or actually we're still seeking what the outcome's going to be. And I think MTD has been the biggest challenge to that, because what does the tax return look like? What does a quarterly update look like? And without that confidence, we're always a bit hesitant to actually sort of grasp the opportunity of the change.
I think that's a point that many people have missed completely about what does the final tax return look like as well. That there isn't one, it doesn't look like anything.
Yeah.
It's definitely a bit that causes people a little bit of stress. And I think I asked that question about the biggest cost, probably with the thought in mind that for me, I think the biggest cost out there is the mental health aspect of the amount of change that we are
Yeah.
facing as an industry that definitely, I mean, maybe we see it more in accountants therapy, our name in itself, and maybe the people that we draw to us are people that are already feeling a little bit stressed, but definitely I think that the biggest cost for accountants is the mental aspect of getting our head around all of the changes, exactly as you said, Chris, and the final tax return is one that's a really good example of how it can just go around your head and go, well, how can I prepare for something that I don't really understand how it looks because it doesn't look. And we're seeing that at the moment. Tom, I want your opinion on that. What are the biggest costs and biggest wins do you think?
I just think it's time at the moment. I think it's time spent learning to then tell your clients, because they look to us for that reassurance. I'm paying you to be my accountant because I don't want to have to worry about legislation. I don't want to have to worry about tax. I don't want to have to worry about compliance. When they're asking questions and you're going back, we're waiting on HMRC to confirm this, or we're waiting on this. And, I reflected earlier, Chris, about last year meeting you at the Sage Roadshow, and you talked about client segmentation, and I did that very early on. Those clients are still now, I'm only just getting them on the software because I've had to wait until now to make sure I'd made the right decision on the software because the changes were so quick. And that to me is the biggest cost of my business, has been the time spent preparing myself to then educate my clients, and then thinking to myself, well, how much can I really charge for this? Because I can't charge them for the hours of research that I've done. I've got to charge them based on the value of the information I'm going to give them. And that's been my biggest cost. And it, I will say, I had a list of 4 software vendors that I was going to use. That has increased again. It's now up to 5, and you'll be pleased to know, Chris, that Sage is now the 5th. You're in my top 5, simply because I think I was being a bit naive to think that I could just do it with just 4, but I've got some clients where I need to extend that. And Paul, I was quite open after that demo we did with you, Dext. Like immediately, Dext Solo was straight in. When I saw what that was capable of, and I think that when I look at that, I know that everyone's talking about the cost element, but I'm also trying to put that positive spin on it and say, yes, I've had a huge amount of time cost investing in all this knowledge, but I am going to make a lot more money out of this as a practice, because I'm going to be able to extend the net to clients who would never have needed an accountant before, and I can grow my business that way and have that facility, that offer to them. So I'll try and end it on a positive, Robyn. That's what I think.
That's really
Forget
good.
the cost now. Let's look at the investment done and the returns we'll get now.
Yeah, we absolutely should. So,
Yeah.
what's the best part of that you've seen of industry in your time dealing with MTD and agents? What's the best side of it?
Collaboration. I think there's been more collaboration on this than I remember MTD for that. And I don't think there was anywhere like this level of collaboration across the industry. I also think when I look back, HMRC were quite reserved. They weren't part of a community as such. I actually feel the community has grown significantly with MTD for IT. And when I think about the industry, and I always stand by the importance of relationships, I think more relationships have formed, and that helps everyone on that journey.
Yeah, it's definitely the collaboration in the community. And as we've seen, HMRC have definitely leaned in this time round, but primarily because MTD for income tax is such a more complex theme than VAT. And therefore, it's the various aspects, getting the journey right. And therefore, whether it's the workshops, which you don't see happening in the background, I think that's reality, is the fact that as accountants, bookkeepers, we may see what's going on LinkedIn, may see what's going on in an event. What we don't probably appreciate is the hours and the days spent in the background with small groups of agents agents as well as business owners to truly understand the problem and where HMRC is sharing what they're doing. At the same time, from the software vendors, Dext, Sage, Xero, QuickBooks, Free Agent, we're all working together with the software, with the customer community as well as agents to really understand how we can do something slightly different and if not better. And if anything, some of the great things we've seen from MTD is the innovation. And that's not just because of AI, it's the innovation in the products to actually solve particular problems.
Yeah. And I've got a bit of flack for saying this in the past. Everyone was saying, well, shouldn't have HMRC delivered a free software? I'm glad they didn't. I am so glad they didn't, because they've gone to the software vendors and gone, we cannot cater for every single scenario. So off you go, guys. Figure it out for yourselves. We'll build the APIs so we can give you the data. And that means for us, we've now got Sage can do this, Dext Solar can do that, Free Agent is specialist at that, Hammock can do that. Everybody's got their own specialty now, so we can pick and choose between what our clients will want. And I think that is brilliant. And also from the point of view, I've got to say my HMRC assist hat on here. I'm hoping that we can overwrite and ignore HMRC assist. I would much rather trust Sage's assist, Dex Solo's assist, Free Agent's assist. I think the software vendors, you guys get it right a lot of the time. So I'm very happy to see that. But I'm not conscious we're getting close to 3 and our next guest will join in. So what you said, Chris, was about the timing and the pressure of January. And we commented on it earlier about doing a party in January in a couple of years to prove that whether this theory works. Can we take that time off in January? From what you guys both know, do you think that the January madness I'm not going to say 2 or 3 years, I'm saying 5 years time, 20,000 cohort is in, we've bedded in for a couple of years. Do you think we'll see January being a lot easier now?
No. The reason being is the fact that it's 2028, we're going to have the cohort of £20,000 coming in. The thing is, we need some visibility in terms of what's going to happen with the below £20,000, plus also every taxpayer. We need a real clear roadmap in terms of how self-assessment of old, which has been around for 27, 28 years, is going to be switched off. Because only when does that happen is that actually the agent has a single workflow and visibility of all their clients. And this is the challenge we're facing. As an industry, as a profession, you've got MTD for the next 3 years. 2027 is going to be a difficult year, not just because MTD for income tax. You've got payroll and benefits in kind. Review, reprice, re-engage all your payroll clients. Think about the software you have. Then you have, let's say, constant changes to company's house. You have e-invoicing coming to 2029 in various cohorts. There is going to be so much change and disruption, and via legislation, not by software. We're constantly going to be incredibly busy. And therefore, it will be 31, 32 year, when actually I think we'll have an easement of it. But clearly, when you think about the challenge, 12 million taxpayers, we're only talking about just under 3 million for MTD. Okay. So therefore, it's actually how do we improve the quality and the workflow of every taxpayer working with an agent? And that comes down to self-assessment completely transforming to MTD, where actually the MTD tax return, which there is no tax return, it's a calculation, is now surfacing information live from RTI, from other sources. Dividends be coming through, interest live from the bank account, and therefore you won't be chasing for client information for the tax return. That is the aspiration, and that is the only way. January is the time when we'll be going on a skiing trip and not doing a tax return.
What about you, Paul?
I completely agree with everything Chris just said. 100%.
Yeah, it's spot on, isn't it?
There's more involved in a self-assessment tax return rather than just your self-employment income and property income. And until the whole process has evolved, you're still going to be chasing clients, because at the moment, most are probably chasing clients for their rental information or they're self-employed. And then all of a sudden it's actually, can you send me that investment portfolio? Because I need to actually reflect all of your activity on disposals or your dividend vouchers, whatever it may be. So there's a bigger picture to this. So, January still be a challenge.
Absolutely. My next big battle is I'm going to take on the mortgage lenders, and I'm going to try and force the hand and say it should be mandatory for mortgage lenders to do quarterly statements to fall in line with MTD. Because can you imagine how frustrating it's going to be for us trying to do tax returns for people who've been MTD compliant all year round, and then we're waiting for that annual mortgage statement that might appear in September, October time.
100%. You're waiting on other third parties for information
Mm.
that's critical to complete the return.
Yeah.
Also, Tom, the SA 302, what value is that? Because it doesn't really show the performance of that business. And this is why on some of the events I've delivered with accountants, where they actually brought a financial advisor along to actually educate the sole trader in terms of how they get mortgages, because obviously sole traders is the most challenging to get a mortgage. It's actually the importance of that quarterly update. That's potentially where the mortgage advisors will be seeking information. But then there needs to be a whole re-education of the sector. The banks need to appreciate what MTD is all about. And if you consider what's happened over the last 12 months, it took a while to get the PI insurance providers understanding what MTD is to change their conditions. So like everything, it'll be probably on the shoulders of the profession, plus the tech vendors to engage with certain people to actually encourage them to actually reconsider how MTD makes everyone's lives a little bit easier. Now, Tom, I'm just wondering, there's been a lot of discussion about banks and bookkeeping and MTD. Is it worthwhile spending a couple of minutes on that?
I think so. Before we do that, Chris, I would just quickly like to say hello to Gemma and Rebecca. You are coming in at a really great time because there's been a lot said today about some of the things the bankers have been saying about bookkeeping and accounting. And Chris, I think at this point, let's open that conversation up. What's your thoughts?
Well, let's be honest. When you think about a small business owner, the first thing they do is not engage an accountant bookkeeper. They don't even engage with HMRC. They start doing business, don't they? And when they're doing business, that's about recording information. That's money in and that's money out. And if you imagine the nature of, let's say, what Making Tax Digital is all about, above £50,000 is clearly the more complex sole traders. And this is where bookkeeping tools are ideal because they want to raise invoices, they may want us to grow, they may be VAT registered, better reporting. But I think the reality is we've been so focused on 26, we've not thought about the habits, the behaviors and the needs of the 27s and the 28s. Naturally, these are more simple businesses. Change in volume of transactions, but also they don't pay the agent very much for year-end compliance. So this is why quite naturally you've seen the banks lean into that MTD world because they see, yes, an opportunity to commercialize what they do, but also it's the fact when you consider the biggest friction of MTD is getting information. And we've been talking about bank feeds. And then you've got free agents who are the superior ones in terms of percentage of them connected to a bank feed. They've only got 78%. So after all these years, the connection levels are so low. And with MTD, it's going to get worse. So this is why you've seen the banks leaning into MTD. But the trouble is, unless you've got collaboration, categorization does not equal bookkeeping. Bookkeeping doesn't equal accounting, and accounting doesn't equal taxation. So this is why that collaboration is key. So this is where I said innovation has been the best thing about MTD. And I think what we have probably a lot of people have overlooked is when you think about where Monzo, Tide, HSBC, SumUp are playing. I know that's not a bank. They're now doing MTD. That's powered by Sage, which then means as an individual working with Sage, you don't need software anymore. The business owners can do categorization in their banking app if they want to, which then means the accountant can collaborate in real time with that banking app ledger from Sage for Accountants without any software. So we've effectively made open banking. We've got rid of bank feeds, which means you've got instant access to the data. So you can do that review, support the categorization, support the quarterly updates without any extra cost. And I think that's where we'll be seeing support the cohorts of 27, 28. But also more importantly, it goes back to that critical review of understanding what do the banks do? Which banks are you working with? How collaborative are they? There's been a bit of noise in the last 48 hours by certain banks. And I think that's the reality, is the fact that business owners will be attracted by some big names. They present their homework once a year to their agent, but really that homework is of low quality. And therefore, where do you start to re-engineer it? So again, this is why the key theme of MTD, yes, sort out your workflows, but be inquisitive and be inquisitive about the technology available.
What does everyone else think? I mean, maybe this is a good point to bring Rebecca in. Bank software?
Not happy. I've had a client who paid a fortune for Tide, ran some VAT returns that were all wrong. Not only were they all wrong, but I couldn't get at the detail, the underlying detail of what he'd filed. And it is a little bit of a complicated one because he's in the construction sector. So we've got some reverse charge stuff and we've got some zero rated stuff going on. And it was an absolute nightmare. And in the end, by the time he came to me, his previous accountant had done zero. By the time he came to me, we were 18 months down the line. It was an absolute mess. And we went back to first principles and we just reconstructed everything and then wrapped up everything on a massive VAT correction return. But he ended up owed them a load of money. I mean, I was chatting to my member of staff about it, and I said, God knows whether we're going to get paid for all of this, but we billed him anyway. But I mean, absolutely the point you've made. If people don't know what they're doing, it costs us so much more to sort it out after they've messed it up than it is to do it in the first place. And I must admit, I'm doing quite a bit of pushing with people at the moment to get them. So people who say they want to do their own bookkeeping, we've been during this week with my junior, we've been going into everybody's license and seeing how bad is it. And then if it's bad, we're emailing them and going, yeah, but it's not really quite there, is it? And I'm willing to run with them for the first quarter, but at that point, I'm afraid if they're making an absolute horlicks of it, they're either going to have to pay us to do it from first principles and just get out the way, or they're looking for another accountant because I'm not having my staff spending hours and hours and hours that I can't bill. I'm not a charity, so I'm not doing it. Sorry, I sound ever so stroppy, but
that's a really good commercial decision to make, though, because you've given people the opportunity to do it themselves, and then
yeah,
you're saying you've even got the touch point now halfway through to say, we've had a look, it's not great, you need to improve. And well, three chances really, isn't it? Three strikes and that's it. You can't be more fair than that, can you?
And if they're, I mean, I've had one client on this morning, I emailed and said, look, there's a few things that you need to be not doing. I said, look, if you're in, I've got half an hour, jump on a Zoom, I'll share my screen, I'll give you a couple of little things that you can do, and I'll show you the thing you're doing wrong and why. And then, and that hopefully, because it looks like she's not far off, we'll be all right. But it is quite a lot of work at the moment, getting on top of it all and watching what they're doing and all of that. But I think this is time that's well invested. And I'm lucky that I've got enough staff to get them to sort of start digging around in it, and then hopefully we'll go forward on an even keel.
I think it goes
apart
back
from the
to
bloke
that.
who hasn't replied. It's mandated. He came to me last year. He's somebody who knows a client of mine, and my client said, "Oh, will you help Jim?" And I said, "Yeah, all right, all right." Anyway, the stuff comes about the last week of January, and then I emailed him and said, "You're going to be in MTD, so you're going to have to, pull your socks up." I've had one email from him since then, which is to say, sorry, I haven't paid your bill. Can you send it again? And that's it. I've said, we need software. We need to get organised. I've no doubt he will at some point come out the woodwork, bless him. But he's a jobbing builder. So, we all know what they're like.
So funny, they're all the same industries.
Oh,
seem
yeah.
to be the same problems, isn't it? Yeah. So what do you make of it all, Paul?
I take the same view. I'm not impressed with it. I think it's a real concern and worry for the industry. At the end of the day, if you're given the capabilities to categorize transactions, anyone can categorize transactions. It's not difficult. I could go through a whole year's worth of bank transactions and probably have them categorized in 10 minutes, by setting up various rules and things like that. When you don't have that foundational knowledge or understanding of what you're doing, it really opens up the risk for doing things wrong. And to Rebecca's point, it's really hard to unravel these things sometimes. We've all been there, and you're spending your life trying to work it all through. And more often than not, you restart from scratch again because that's actually the easier path. The sad thing is, it often leads to additional cost for your client that they weren't expecting, more stress. And potentially under declaration of whatever it may be, VAT, income tax, corporation tax, it doesn't matter what tax it is. So I think giving the impression that these things are really easy, they're not if you haven't got that knowledge and personal business, capital, revenue, VAT, there's a risk associated with it.
Yeah, and it's surprising really because a lot of the people that I'm finding are buying into that. It's super easy to do bookkeeping. I've seen the adverts on TV. I've got that. They are people in construction, which I can go and watch a video on how to build a wall on YouTube. If I said to my building clients, I'm going to go do it myself, they would have an absolute fit because they'd be like, well, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know about retaining weight loads and all of that. You don't know what materials to use. You don't know what you're doing. And yet with bookkeeping, they have a very different opinion. They think that should be straightforward and easy to do. And I've never, the mentality of that, I struggle to get across sometimes. I just don't get it.
100%. I remember going to B&Q once because we needed to plaster a damaged wall and they'd got ready-made plaster. And I thought, oh, this will be easy. I bought a tub of ready-made plaster and I'll just put it on the wall. It wasn't very smooth by the end of it, and it was more of a feature textured wall that needed to be done properly. So get the experts in to do the jobs that need.
Absolutely. And I'm very conscious of time, guys. And Gemma, I'm so sorry we've not got to you, but you're a very specialist guest actually, because you are the HMRC MTD events lead, aren't you? Is that I've got that title right, haven't I?
Yeah, that's right.
Fantastic, good. Because I think the work that you're doing at the moment is incredible. I mean, at Countex last week, the stand that you'd organised for HMRC to talk to people and everything like that. How are you finding the communication going between agents, in particular with Rebecca, and then you've got the software vendors, Paul, Chris, everybody else that's going on? How are you organising all of this in like what seems like an incredible short space of time?
I think what Paul and Chris said earlier, just before I joined, really brings it all together. It's collaboration, it's working together. This doesn't work with just MTD staff and the MTD programme. There's a whole gang of us working under Craig. He's got 250 plus staff. The events team is a team of 9. And we all pull together. This just doesn't work with the familiar faces that you see. So as much as you might see me and Sam and Craig, there's so many people that all have to play their part to get this over the line. When we think about events, I think they've changed massively, and we're always trying to think outside the box, push the boundaries and do something a bit different. So for us this year at Countex felt really different. The sentiment, the conversations that we were having, the agents who were speaking to us, as well as some of the unrepped who were there as well, which was really lovely to see. But people are doing the doing. So if you think back to last year when we were at Countex and people were still saying, is this going to happen? And we're like, yeah, of course it is. And we're not going to pull out now. And this is what you need to do. And this is why we're doing it. There was still a lot of them, why are you doing this questions last year? And the turnaround, if you think 12 months later, people were coming to us and saying, I am partway through ASA, the journey, the sign up. What do I need to do? This is the screen I'm seeing. What does it look like? What's the next step? Or how do I link my software back to HMRC? Do I speak to you? Do I speak to software? And it was brilliant to see the action and all the education and all the hard work and the efforts of everybody all coming together to see people actually, that call to action has worked and people are signing up and they're taking the steps that they need to take. But like I say, it's taken a village. It's taken all of us to get to this point. There's times in a Countex, I would run over to Paul and be like, Paul, I've got a question. And can Dext help? Well, I'll go to free agent and all the guys. And it all comes down to that collaboration, working together. The MTD events that we did, that was a pioneer session that we did, that first one. And we thought, well, we took loads of HMRC staff in and we trialed it and we thought, this has got potential. We can do this. And the feedback was brilliant. And afterwards, on the train journey home from that first MTD event, of bringing people into one of our offices, which at first we were thinking, this is a no-go. There's red flags everywhere. But we did it. And again, it took everybody to play the part. And the conversation, the secondhand conversation that was on LinkedIn afterwards on that train journey home, I was blown away. And we kind of all got back together as if we need to do this. And we did it. And we did it then over 14 different locations across the HMRC estate. But again, everybody played the part. It was software developers. It was Rebecca. It was the panels that we had, the rep bodies who were there, everybody who came in, and most importantly, the agents who came in and asked the questions and challenged us to then think differently. So, okay, next month we've got another event, let's do this differently, or this is what we need to add in, this is what we need to bring to the session. And I'd love to go and do them all again because they were brilliant, and we had a waiting list as long as you are, and people are still saying, are you going to do more? But we've moved on, and we're just trying to bring different things back to the table. So Accountex this year, again, it was different in that it was more digital. We had demonstrations there across the 2 days where we were showing people what they needed to do. They'd leave that session, and I think everybody learns differently anyway. You can't just expect that to be a once and done. You've had a demo, so go and crack on now. You're fine. You've been shown. People would then come over to the other side of the stands and they'd be like, can I just ask a question? And we had a demo club there, which we've not done before, and we've taken it for a bit of a test run. And we were able to come over and say, right, here's the screen you've just seen. Which part didn't you understand? Here's the QR code. Let's go back to this screen. This is the button you need to press. This is what you need to think about. And it just brings it all together for people. So I think the events are huge. I think we've reached 159,000 people across events in the last 12 months. That's working again with software developers, the rep bodies, the likes of Rebecca, making sure that it's not always just HMRC's voice, because believe it or not, people don't like to listen to us or think we're just trying to sell the MTD journey. But having different voices, different challenges really shapes the whole picture. So it might feel like a tough gig, but it's fantastic. And I think the underlying golden thread for me with all of this is that we're all people and we're all trying to do the best. We're all trying to do a job. And the golden thread for me is always hearts and minds, and remembering that sometimes you'll leave an event and you feel a bit flustered or a bit upset over something, and the next day you can be on a total high because you've really helped someone with something. But it's hearts and minds. Everyone's got a job to do. We all need to pull together, and I've really seen that massively in MTD. So it's been a pleasure.
Good. So I think at this point, guys, we're past the 3:15. So I would like to say a huge thank you to Chris and to Paul, not just for coming on to this session today. The both of you, over the last 12 months of my personal journey, I've been looking at you guys for inspiration and listening to what you've been saying. I've actually, I'm kind of talked enough to you two over webinars over the last 12 months, which is incredible. So thank you very much for that. And I think any final thoughts from you both for the future ahead, what people should be doing? Chris, do you want to let us know?
I think the priority has got to be 27. We are got over 26. You're onboarding clients and actually come to play. We've got a bit of relaxation with penalty points, but actually do not overlook the 27 cohort and engage early, get them on board early. And if you can get them start to digitize their approach, even just capturing information on an Excel spreadsheet more regularly, and then nurture them into something better, that's the key. Also, be really, really crystal clear in terms of what they're paying you. Annual billing to monthly billing is one thing, but then you've got that transition in terms of, are you doing self-assessment or MTD? So rigorously review your letter of engagement as well.
I would echo that as well. I would also add, and this is sort of listening to all of the chats at Accountex and everything else, is don't rush or make knee-jerk decisions on anything. Define your workflows, build your strategy, and don't let AI build your strategy. Define your strategy and workflows first, and then see how AI can complement and support your workflows. You're ultimately in control. You're the decision makers. It's got to work for you, and it's got to work for your clients.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
That's been a really, really enjoyable session. Thank you, guys. And we have been asked by a few people if we can do this again after the 7th of August submission. So hopefully you're maybe not on the day, but if we can hopefully see you guys then, that'd be great. Yeah, exactly.
It's a Friday.
Well, I'll be working. Others might not be because they've got everything so under control, haven't they, Robyn?
Or maybe I might be on holiday. Sorry. So that might be why we won't be doing the 7th of August. But yeah, it'd be nice to come back and be able to review and actually see how those submissions have gone and actually talk about the workflow, etc. But thank you, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Bye-bye.
And
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Now, I have to admit, very selfishly, I was desperate to get you two on for this 3 o'clock slot. And the reason being is that I think that there is, I was very naive last year with how much work goes on behind the scenes at HMRC with the professional bodies, with people like yourself, Rebecca, with the software vendors, and just how much work has been done for 11 years to get ready for MTD. I was very naive in that. And I think that's down to me not knowing enough, me not doing enough research, and also perhaps everybody not saying enough about the work that everybody was doing behind closed doors. So I really wanted to bring you two on because I think there is a story that hasn't been told yet about, in particular, Rebecca, the work that you've done over the last few years with HMRC in getting MTD ready. I know, speaking to Sam Wood, I think the last 2 years, I think you could say you've done a full-time job in your day job and a full-time job working with Sam, Gemma, Craig, and the team in getting the MTD here. So what's that been like for you over the last couple of years? Because really, you've been the gap between us as agents and HMRC. And you're not a professional body, you're not a software vendor. You are just that gap, aren't you?
Yeah. I will admit, actually, I heard someone call me a one-person professional body a couple of weeks ago, and it made me laugh.
Probably about right.
Yeah, because I pop up everywhere. I mean, I've shouldered my way in. They got a meet. They've got a meeting for the rep bodies, and somehow my name's always on the list of invitees. But I mean, going back right to the start, I came into this story absolutely fuming and saying, this is just ridiculous. You cannot do this. And the weird thing was, so I'll just tell the story. One or two will have heard me say it before, but I'm on the Admin Birds Advisory Board, which is quite a high up board. We are part of HMRC, but we're sort of not. We're a critical friend, and we report direct to the minister rather than to anyone within HMRC. And so I was at an ABAB meeting in July of 2015, and this guy came along and he was demoing something that they were thinking about, and it was brilliant because it was sending information directly to HMRC and it was all whizzy. When he'd finished, he said, I think this is the future. And I nipped out as he went out down the hall in the Treasury, and I chased him down and I said, I think this is really, really interesting for those clients that are digitally enabled. This is really interesting. Do keep me informed because I'd like to know more about it. The next thing that happened is that David Gauke announced the end of the tax return and this wonderful thing that was going to be mandatory. And I went absolutely mad. And I was posted on LinkedIn and on Twitter. And I was having a very difficult time personally at the time. My husband had just been diagnosed with terminal cancer. And I was just letting rip. And this chap from HMRC, can't remember his name now, I don't publish my phone number, and I not exactly ex-directory, but I tend to keep it quiet. Anyway, he phoned me, and I thought full marks for finding me. And then he said, please, would you stop being so negative about it? And I went into total rant. I gave him both barrels and then reloaded for another two. And I said, the trouble is with you lot up in London, what do you know about anything? You don't know about my clients. You think everybody can do this, that, and the other. What you really need is somebody who knows what real world is all about. And he went, so would that be you, Rebecca? And I thought, oh no, I walked into that. But that's how I came in. I was being asked to not be so negative about it. And then I could hardly not. So I spent probably 18 months during the original consultation period in 2016 going around the country. If I was lecturing I remember doing one in Newcastle. If I was lecturing in Newcastle in an afternoon, I would say to the local people, look, get a room or hang on to the room for another half an hour. I'll come along. I'll tell you what's in the consultation document. I want you all to respond. I want you to write in and tell HMRC what you think won't work, which was most of it at the time. And so that was how I got involved. I went onto the programme board at that point, and I've been on it ever since. I think there's only one person who's been on it as long as me. but it's ebbed and flowed really, Tom, because yes, I think there has been a period of probably a couple of years where I was probably doing 2.5, 3 days a week of HMRC meetings on, on whether it was a get together to design around a problem like shared property, or whether it was a program board meeting, or, whatever it was going on. But I felt that with my experience of the front line and rubbish clients, I really needed to be in the room. Whatever it cost me, I needed to be in the room so that HMRC had visibility of what goes on in our offices, everybody watching what goes on in our offices. And I know that at times I've come across as a massive supporter of MTD. And to be truthful, by now I am, because I can see the benefits that we're going to see from the new computer system, which is a massive part of it. But that was my driver, was to make sure HMRC was cited. I mean, 7, 8 years ago, I was raising issues around our small tax software providers going to be driven out because they're not going to adapt to the new systems. Is that going to leave only the very big boys? And is it going to cost firms like me an absolute fortune to be able to run a practice, because all the small providers have exited the market, and what we're left with is the really big guys who want to basically scalp us? So, there's been loads and loads of aspects to it. I've loved it. It has made life tough at times, because I end up working at night and weekends trying to make up the time that I've spent in meetings. But still, I think it will slow down for a bit, but I want to be around for the partnership phase. I mean, I'm really glad we're not doing it for corporation tax. Nightmare. That just doesn't even bear thinking about. But I'd like to be around for the design elements of the partnership phase. And HMRC have changed so much over the time. I mean, Craig coming on has been such a breath of fresh air because of the genuine co-creation, not just we've designed this, what do you think? Well, we think it's rubbish, and why didn't you talk to us before you designed it? Has happened quite a while ago, but now it genuinely is. Come with the problem. This is a problem we're trying to solve. Let's get the right people in the room and figure out how to design it so that it works properly. And that isn't always me, but I mean, that is just such a transformation.
Well, you've obviously, we all owe you a big thanks, for the amount of work that you've done. And I think when we talk to Gemma now, years ago, the thought of having someone doing what you're doing, Gemma, wouldn't have existed without the work that Rebecca has been doing in the background. And now I really hope HMRC see the value in that collaboration. And it's great to see we've got people like yourself, Gemma, working with Rebecca and other agents to do these events. So what's the future going to be like for you two, with working together, working with other agents, and the future of MTD? How's that going to pan out, Gemma?
Well, there's no escaping us, Rebecca, but I always shudder a little bit inside when I have to send an email or a note over to Rebecca saying, have you got time for this, or will you help? Because I know she's so busy, and I'm asking her to give up her time for something, which her voice is, along with other people, like Emma Rawson's another one. Like I'll drop Emma emails. Can you just check this? What are you hearing? She spoke about penalty reform at Accountex, and I didn't manage to leave our stand to go and listen to Emma, but it's wanting to have the feedback, and it's like, right, let's get a call and let's talk, let's have that discussion, let's see what you were hearing. And I'll be like, well, Emma, here's my timeline for the PR strategy. What does this look like in terms of externals? Have I missed anything? Is there any gaps? We call upon the professional bodies and some really key players so much, and it helps shape everything we do in MTD. They hold us accountable as well. They will tell us, this is rubbish, what are you doing? Don't send that out, don't do this, let us check it. Going forward, we're not done. We're by no means done. And I think you'd said when you first spoke to Rebecca, a lot of like having us on the call and a lot of the things that we do are not spoken about. It's because we're so busy, and you just get on with things. And we speak to thousands of people each week about MTD to make them aware, to educate them. I think my team spoke to, there was 13,000 people on webinars for March alone.
Mm.
And a huge, I think it was like 4.4k of them were unrepresented. We're trying to look at different sectors. The unrepresented and that sector specific targeting is so important to us. And I've had these conversations endless times with both Rebecca, Emma, Kevin. I can sit and list the names because it's on everybody's mind and often keeps us awake at night. But going forward, there's still so much to unpick. And I think getting the message to unrepresented and making sure that they're aware, making sure that they're engaged, and making sure that they're ready is huge for us. There's no silver bullet. There's no right answer here. And you don't know what you don't know and how to reach people. And as much as we send awareness letters out, I think just for the 50k cohort alone, we sent just under 800,000 letters. Not everybody opens them. Not everybody speaks to their agents. Some people don't have their agents. It's just thinking about all the different parts now to make sure that everybody who needs to be in MTD are there. And I think we need to keep the credibility and the trust and the relationships we've built to continue speaking to that whole, like I said, a village of people, to make sure that we're on track, to make sure that we've got that human approach and we're not missing the mark and we're not tone deaf. It's really important that we maintain that throughout.
And on that great note, we've got Grace and Jourdan in the they're in the chat. You coming in, guys? It's 3:30. Welcome to jump in.
They're allowed.
There we go.
Hello.
How you doing, both? All right?
Hello, good afternoon. Wonderful to see you, Gemma, Tom, Robyn, Rebecca, Grace. Happy Friday, guys.
Yeah, it's
Thank you
Friday
very
and
much
the
for
sun's
doing
shining.
We are just talking about really collaboration and the way that both Rebecca has done an incredible amount of work in terms of representing agents and how HMRC have responded to that. And I would like to take the opportunity to say a big thank you to Rebecca for doing that work in the first place, because without someone like you representing us with the way that you're able to do it, right? There's not a lot of people that are able to do the communication that you are, which is but this is rubbish, so let's change it and be constructive. I don't think we would see some of the changes that we've seen without that. So thank you very much. And thank you to HMRC for listening to those kind of things. I definitely get the sense that where perhaps you've softened the ground there, Rebecca, there's more collaboration with a wider group. I mean, we've got in the chat there the thought of the working together groups, that there is that widening of wanting to hear those opinions, at least from my perspective. It seems to be easier to get in touch. Craig is a big part of that, isn't he? That he will encourage people to talk to him on LinkedIn, etc., and give their opinions, and those opinions are listened to. So that is only for the benefit of all of us. We don't always. I've got
a question for Gemma and Rebecca on Craig's LinkedIn, actually. So Gemma, let's say Craig says something really stupid on LinkedIn. Should he be more afraid of you or Rebecca?
I know the answer to that.
The right answer is that Craig would never say anything daft on LinkedIn. He's very professional, very responsible, and he knows what he can and can't say. I think one thing to say is, and Tom, you said this earlier in the week to me, is that you open LinkedIn now and you see a host of faces from MTD and there are people there. So I think one thing that we hear an awful lot, and you have to just let it kind of be water off a duck's back, is that MTD are not doing enough. And I could sit and list loads of stats too on what we are doing, how we do it, how we consult people, not just the Rebeccas and the Emmas, but we have an external readiness forum every month where we're bringing in all of the rep bodies. We bring in the software developers. We give them all the program updates. We listen on LinkedIn as well. So we've got the official HMRC channel on there, and they will push all the marketing and the comms, and they will give you the key messages. Craig is the first one to jump onto LinkedIn and say, guys, listen, you said this, so we've heard you and we've changed it. Here's a quick insight, here's an update. Keep an eye out for the guidance coming out. That guidance will be shaped by the conversations that we're hearing on LinkedIn and other channels, and people will drop us emails. We don't just work 9 to 5. We are available at the weekends. We are on LinkedIn 24/7. If someone pings us a message, we're picking it up. And Craig will often say, I've spoken to such and such a body on LinkedIn. Can you pick this up? And he will send it out to the program. And there's people who are reactive to that. So we do try. We push the boundaries. We are probably more available, open and transparent. Working in the open is massive for MTD. Whether it's right or wrong, we are doing it, and we allow ourselves bare. So you can see our faults, and you can send us a note, and Craig will respond. So I think there's a lot of relationships that have been built via LinkedIn, but I would never say that Craig would say anything wrong or naughty.
I think someone we've mentioned is Sam Wood, and I would just like to highlight. I know Sam recorded a chunk for you. I've been teaching today, so I haven't been able to see it. But one of the really powerful things is, of course, that Sam, and actually people might not know this, Sam is a chartered accountant. And I knew Sam a long time before he went to HMRC, because he was in practice in the north of England, and I used to go up there and do a residential conference. Sam used to come along, and he always asked me the hardest questions. He used to ask me these left field questions in the middle of a lecture, and my brain would go, oh my God, how do I answer that? So I got to know Sam quite well, and then he left and went to HMRC, and he didn't go straight into MTD, and I've sort of lost touch a little bit. I bumped into him up that way, and then when he came onto MTD, I thought, manna from heaven, this is absolutely perfect, because having an accountant on the inside who understands the accountancy issues made a really big difference, because obviously the team are tax people, but they're not accountants. And sometimes he acted as this intermediary, and I'd say something to him, and he'd say, yeah, can you say it to so and so as well, because I've been saying it and I think they think I'm mad, but if you say it as well, perhaps they'll realize it is a thing. So
he's a gentle, genuinely kind person as well. You meet him at the events, he's always the first person to have a chat with you. He's a lovely chap. I think everybody in the group would agree that we all love Sam.
On that kind of theme, I'm really desperate just to ask this question actually, and go back to the thought of, are HMRC doing enough? You've said that that's something that some people come up against and say HMRC are not doing enough. I wonder, that's probably a question for Rebecca. I don't think any of us could be here and listen, and hopefully everybody listening today would agree that that is not can't be said on an individual level, that any individual that all of us have come across in terms of HMRC in engagement with the agent community has been top-notch, listening, helpful, engaged. Do you think it actually comes down to more a funding issue, a more substantial issue of giving the resources to do enough to particularly tell the unrepresented, or to do more in the agent community? Is it that, or is it just that as a profession maybe we prefer to moan a bit? What do you think?
So I think there are a number of things in play. I think, obviously with 40 years in practice, I remember the old Inland Revenue and HMRC, and some of it is cultural. That there isn't now, but there was for many years a lot of suspicion of accountants by tax inspectors who saw accountants doing dodgy things, and that although that's a long time ago, that culture of not really working together, or working together a bit but looking at the other side and thinking you lot are a load of crooks type of thing, and us thinking you lot are a shower. I think that's something that is now absolutely in history, but over the life of this project, more than 10 years, in the early part of the project, there was a lot of that. There's also quite a lot of, has been, not now, we know best and we'll go and design it. And some of this is about the way that systems have been written in the past and are not so much now, is that, well, we'll just develop it and we'll work it all out and everything. And hey, everyone, what do you think? And we all go, oh my God, what have you done? This is a disaster. And all that cultural stuff has really, really moved. As to resources, one of the things we have to remember is that the tax authority is primarily there to collect tax. And so activities which aren't around collecting tax needs some careful thought before my taxpayer money, my tax dollars, are spent on jollies in hotels or whatever. I think given all of that history, I think they have done an amazing job. But they have also asked, and I think this is excellent, they have also asked the rep bodies to step up. They have also said to rep bodies, okay, so what's your plan for your members? Because actually, the rep bodies are the ones who should be helping and supporting their members. That's where actually the money, that's what my membership fee of ICAW is paying for. And I'd rather it come out of that than come out of taxpayers' money, which should be spent on something else. So I think they've done a great job. I think, Gemma has been just stunning, absolutely stunning. And a lot of it is Craig. I sat down with Craig at Fab and said, Craig, we should be doing this and we should be doing that. And Craig went away and sort of got Gem on board and then started organising it. So I think the unrepresented is a real mountain to climb. But I know Craig has been like a builder's show and all sorts of things. So he's really, really getting out. And as programme director, blooming all power to him, because he could be, actually, guys, I'm quite high up. I'm going to sit in my office. And he just gets out there and does it. So
he even podcasts now. And he did a podcast with Grace. How was that, Grace?
Yeah, no, that was amazing. It was so nice for HMRC to be so open to the idea as well. And I completely echo what you've been saying about individuals in HMRC. Sam Wood was lovely. He did the intro to Craig for me. And Craig was wonderful. He came on and he was so open and honest and said things in a way that I know my listeners would really understand. It wasn't full of jargon, kind of no questions were really off limits. And so that really helped. And again, strengthened the relationships between accountants and HMRC.
I must say, I hope he's not watching this, because he's going to come away from this thinking everybody loves him even more. And Jourdan, thank you for jumping on board. You're the software perspective in all this. And how has Apari found, the HMRC communication journey? I mean, how's it gone?
Well, we've been very fortunate in our CPO, Anesh Mehta, for his sins, was a senior policy advisor for Making Tax Digital back a few years ago. So there's a few strings that we get to pull there, but more so, even just the public content that's out there, it more means that software vendors, they're open to that discussion there, but then dribbling down back the software vendors to the firms. The opportunity to be on something like this, where historically some software vendors may have cowered from speaking directly with firms. You're not going to grow unless you receive that feedback directly there. So it's a full loop of transparency, which is the whole point of MTD.
Part of our celebration today really is acknowledging the way that we can all work together and the way that HMRC has actually worked with people, particularly people like Rebecca and the wider agent community. So brilliant. And it's time to say a big thank you to Rebecca and to Gemma for joining us for their session on the MTD Marathon Live. Before you go though, would you be able to give us maybe just one closing thought, whether that thought is to do with the next action or a little bit of advice or anything that you like? Gemma, would you like to go first?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having us. I do have my official HMRC laptop open at the same time, doing my day job as well as this, so we don't get time off to come and join these sessions. I think, like I've said, we wouldn't be where we are without everybody's contributions. That doesn't stop. Momentum doesn't stop. We are not taking our foot off the gas. We know we've still got a lot of work to do, and we'll continue listening. We'll continue working with people. So please do reach out to us. If you can take anything away from today, if you need to be signed up, then sign up. I think early preparation is key, and it also gives you the opportunity to reach out to us if you have any problems. And before there is that kind of surge at the 11th hour, no one likes Christmas shopping on Christmas Eve. So get your sign-ups done. Reach out to us if you need us, and we are here. We are approachable, and we want to work together to get this over the line. So thank you to everyone for the big, huge, massive part that you've all played, and today's been excellent. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Gemma.
And thank you for covering some of the Q&As in the chat today. We've really appreciated that. Thank you.
Yeah, Gemma's been here from 9 o'clock in the chat supporting people, and she's finishing at 5, and she didn't have to do that. You've been a huge help, Gemma. Thank you so much.
Much appreciated. Over to you, Rebecca.
I think I'll echo something that Paul Lodder said, which is, don't. I made this mistake. I decided that everybody was going to go through the same sausage machine, and I was going to have the same software, and everyone was going to do the same thing. And what I've had to learn is that that absolutely isn't going to work, because all my clients are different. And I've got to design an individual solution for each client. And I've just seen an email arrive from a client who came to me only about 10 days ago saying, oh, we think we're coming into MTD and our accountant's retiring. And she's just come back to me and said, okay, I've got this software now. Tell me what to do next. So it is a case of just working with your individual clients and trying to design a solution that works for you and works for them and makes you money. So good luck, everybody. And thank you for inviting me. And I'm going to the pub.
Good idea. Brilliant idea. Well done.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Gemma.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. So, Grace and Jourdan, thank you again for joining us. This is your time now. I'm conscious we haven't properly really introduced either of you. So what we've been asking people to do is introduce themselves a little bit and tell us a bit about your MTD journey in whatever capacity you'd like. Grace, would you like to go first?
Yeah, no, of course. So hi everyone, my name is Grace Hardy. I came through accounting through an apprenticeship when I was 18. I then qualified as an accountant when I was 20 and then set up the practice that I run now at 21. We've scaled to look after hundreds of clients, which is really exciting. And most recently was listed on Forbes 30 under 30, which was on my vision board. So a very happy gal. And yeah, so we've been doing MTD obviously through our clients, and that journey was interesting. Obviously, we're all cloud-based and everyone's on software. But as Rebecca said at the end of her time, is finding the right software for each individual client. There's so many different clients with so many different nuances. So working around each of them has been an interesting challenge.
How has that process gone? So what is your process and how many do you have coming in the first wave?
So when it came through and we were doing the analysts, we went to a Sage roadshow, and that was incredibly helpful for MTD. And they kind of went through how to segment each sort of client. So we did that straight after, which was really, really helpful. We realized that there was probably only a handful of clients, but actually we have an internal tax calculator to compare sole trader versus a limited company, and we found that actually a couple of them would be better off. So we did end up incorporating a couple of people that were meant to be MTD just to make my life easier. So we did that, and now we've just only got a few, I believe only 3 for this wave of MTD, which is brilliant. So they're the test.
It's amazing how many incorporations happened in March 2026, isn't it?
I know, most of them probably came from me.
That's good planning, though. I think it's good planning. But on the flip side, Jourdan, you're coming at this from the software point of view.
Yeah,
how are things going?
Not quite as many accolades as Grace, but hello everyone. My name's Jourdan. Some of you may have heard my dulcet Australian tones a few times. We've done some personal tax webinars together with Accountants Therapy. But I spend most of my time speaking with accountants and bookkeepers around MTD, personal tax, but more so the workflow challenges and how firms are able to adapt kind of to the changes that are happening in the industry, which you all know about. So I'm really excited to be part of this conversation today. A bit of my background, I was an ex-Dext employee, and now I've come over to the personal tax side with Apari Pro, so focusing in on SA100 MTD skill.
So
that's me.
Fantastic.
Sorry, I was struggling to unmute myself there. So we've gone through quite a few of the similar questions for a lot of our guests. My favourite one is what kind of misinformation have you seen out there that you would like to quell? Or actually, let's add another one as well. And what's your favourite aspect to talk about for MTD?
Okay, Grace, do you want to go first, or you want to send that over to me?
Jourdan's
No,
asking
no.
for you to buy time.
No,
Yeah, no,
I'm
you go
I'm off the rip.
first.
Yeah, no, I can go straight off the rip here. Look, I think misinformation. I think I would like to see software houses, and especially software stacks that are listed as MTD solutions, must be listed if they are recognized on HMRC and recognized as
Yeah.
solutions. And moreover, if we could start looking into some of the accuracy rates of a couple of the data extraction parts of some software houses, I think we could do that too. But my favorite thing about MTD and speaking with firms is I believe MTD may have lit the fire under some accountants' chairs to change some processes that they may have wanted to change already for many years. And seeing some of those processes be changed and the time back that you can actually give the firm, and I hate using that, the time back, but really them coming back to you and explaining we've had X amount of time saved is kind of my favorite part of this job.
That's a really fair comment
Good answer.
and good answer. Grace, go on, misinformation and the best bit.
That's really difficult to follow. I think misinformation is maybe saying that it's like we hear from clients a lot, they're worried because it's more admin. And I go, well, it's really not. It's just about doing those bits of admin in short sprints rather than a marathon kind of at the year end, which I understand from their point of view, they would just rather put their heads in the sand and wait for the whole year to be over and then come December do it. But actually, it's about learning to be more organized. And I think that's probably one of the things I was most excited about with MTD was actually we do chase a lot of those sole traders a lot, but actually MTD coming in means that yeah, we'll still have to chase them, but actually we're chasing for less information because it will be done in quarters, obviously, like VAT returns, which is quite nice.
How have you
So
found structuring your pricing around chasing those people in instead of doing it annually to quarterly? Have you like for a lot of us, we've not really set in stone exactly how much it's going to be. Are you still on that process, or have you nailed it in?
Yeah, so I think for us, we did it in packages. So we have sole trader packages for monthly clients. So we essentially mirrored the packages based on the existing ones that we already had, but obviously increasing prices for those quarterly returns. But it was basically just those quarterly returns that needed to be added into the pricing to make essentially MTD pricing.
Oh, brilliant.
stuff.
Nice and organized. Most of us are still scrambling a little bit.
Yeah. So your client, the client reaction from you, for you, Grace, has been positive overall, or has it been a bit of a case of having to talk them around?
I think for existing clients, the conversation has been much easier because we do regular bookkeeping. Sole traders are on quarterly or monthly packages. So actually that conversation hasn't been too difficult because obviously we'll register them on their behalf. And so that's basically been fine. It's just explaining why they're on it, what it is. That conversation's been a breeze. The conversation that I feel is more difficult being have is those unrepresented people that have been trying to find accountants, trying to explain to them what it is that you don't have to pay tax on a quarterly basis, and understanding that it's not as scary as it might be perceived. Because again, there's a lot of misinformation out there. People will speak with their friends and going, oh, I have to do X, Y, Z, and it's going to be really complicated. And it's not, and it's actually stripping that back and just talking about it in plain terms.
From a software point of view, Jourdan, we talked a lot about unrepresented and the wave that we're kind of expecting to see at some point, probably the first one being January 28, when a lot of unrepresented taxpayers come to do their first MTD tax return and realise that the government gateway isn't available. Is that something of concern for software, or are you excited for that software? Because surely you're expecting a wave of new business at that point going, I need some help.
Yeah.
Or is that a concern in terms of capacity, like it is for a lot of accountants?
I could see if I was in the office right now, the customer support guys would be yelling a very different answer than the one I'm about to give you. It's something I'm very excited for, but I think it's something as a business that we've very much planned for and roadmapped to. And you're seeing that gradual increase come through just already by this year as well. So we're kind of expecting those figures.
That's good to hear because I think that that's something where a lot of people, a lot of in our industry are going to really struggle with that influx of what to do and the pressure of taking those clients on, and pressure of saying no as well is something difficult to get over when you feel like you're just being a bad person to say no, I can't help you, and worrying if you're going to ruin your own business because you're not taking on work when you can. How about you guys? Are you expecting there to be an influx of people to you at some point in this process?
We're actually not sure because we predominantly look after limited companies, and a lot of our marketing is based around limited companies and tax advisory work and fractional CFO services. So we're expecting people in dribs and drabs from referrals from existing MTD and sole trader clients, but we're not expecting a massive spike.
We're seeing quite a few firms are doing that now. I know a few locally that have gone, look, we just can't service all of our limited company clients. We're just going to say no to sole traders, partnerships, and landlords. Is that been a consideration for you at any point to think, do we need to go down one route now? Because I think, myself included, I'm feeling like I'm stretching myself thin now by trying to cover everything.
Yeah, I think maybe 6 or 8 months ago, we had an internal discussion about it, and we think that we provide more value to limited companies rather than sole traders. I do still have sole traders. I absolutely love them. They do such cool things. But at the end of the day, especially I found it difficult when we went VAT registered to keep our pricing competitive for sole traders because that 20% extra jump can be a lot for a sole trader that's not VAT registered. So we usually felt from that point on that actually they'd probably be served by someone else at a better price. So like with someone else. And I think that was really important for us to know that and understand that, and then kind of redirect to maybe some larger clients instead, where they're also VAT registered and can claim it back.
We're definitely seeing in my job that kind of thing, realizing that we don't suit everybody and that there are some people that we are priced out of. So particularly sole traders that want a full set of accounts, we end up having to charge them the same as we would for a limited company because our process is built for that limited company process. So we have to put them through that same process. And not to say that we provide a full set of accounts for every sole trader. I'd certainly a vast majority of my MTD clients are sole traders in this first cohort, and we don't provide a full set of accounts, hence why I've got a ton of sole traders. But yeah, see, this is a theme that seems to have come out over today, that thought of really specializing and working out what you're good at. And I think that extends to software as well. So this is possibly a good question for Jourdan. What is Apari Pro specifically good at? Has that been part of the journey for Apari Pro that you've gone, okay, we're not going to try and cater for absolutely everybody. We're going to focus on this. Or is it a case of just try and do everything?
No, I think it's very much the first point there that we are just specializing in that personal tax element there. One point to add as well is that we aren't integrated with other software, so it is very much that end-to-end. All we are doing is that SA100 and the MTD piece there, right? So that's where we kind of differentiate for some of maybe the other legacy softwares that have a lot of fingers in a lot of pies, and maybe that just comes with age, and they have to continuously adapting to what's coming new. We know what we specialize in, and we only sit for that USP, which is nicer for me because I feel like it's really catered to the people I'm speaking to instead of that blanketed approach, which like Grace and everyone has alluded to.
And I will say, because you are both young, we do have to adapt constantly when we're old. Getting out of bed now, I've had to adapt how I get out of bed. So I will back the old software vendors up for that.
That's got to be the new illustration to use. We'll move away from the chainsaw and the chopping down a tree, and now we're going to move into the adapt how you get out of bed illustration.
Yeah, as Tom said, spreadsheets are still sexy. It's okay. We're with you, mate.
Oh, and I know
you're waiting for that.
Yeah.
Oh, at the same.
Yeah, there we go.
Good timing.
Fantastic. Made my day. That has. Thank you.
Okay. Maybe dare I ask that? How do you feel about spreadsheets, Grace?
Oh, I love a spreadsheet. I'm a massive nerd. My whole apprenticeship was built on spreadsheets. I love making like calculations in spreadsheets. I love making new formulas in spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are great.
Spreadsheets are still sexy. Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh, I can't believe we're already at 4 o'clock,
We're at
guys.
4 o'clock. So I will just ask for those of you that are joining in now, I'd love for Jourdan and Grace. You've been fantastic to have you on. Been a lovely way to end the day, actually. So thank you very much for that. But what we're inviting everyone to do as they finish is just have a few words, a couple of minutes, just to say if there's any advice they could give to people listening about how they get ready for MTD, or what do you think's in store for you in your future. It'd be great to hear that. So, Jourdan, would you like to kick us off first, please?
Yeah, sure thing. Look, I think one of the biggest takeaways is that firms don't need to panic right now, especially not when you're in a group of accountants therapy, when you've got a community there. But one thing I would ask is just to start preparing. Just start preparing, because the earlier firms that begin adapting to these workflows and engaging with clients, the smoother that transition is going to be. Right. So in the future, we want to look at, over on the Apari side, getting out AI data chasing agents and just trying to automate some of those mundane tasks for tax agents. But I'd like to leave the final point that AI, we're trying to work with accountants, and we wouldn't be anywhere without accountants. So I really appreciate the chance to speak so openly with you guys and get your feedback. So thank you very much. And thanks, Grace, for jumping on as well. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jourdan. And if you missed Jourdan at Accountex, he is on the recovery.
Yeah, 7 screws in my foot up. Had to try and get out of Accountex somehow, guys. Don't tell Tony.
Yeah. And Grace, thank you so much for joining us. I'd love to know what the future holds for you over the next. Everybody's piling in now.
Yeah,
Excuse me, over the
you're
next
welcome.
few years. And
you're very welcome to stay as well. Just before we let's let Tom cough. You're very welcome to stay. So this is now the part where we're going to go for a nice
changed as well. Nick, how could you?
You came smart earlier. But Grace, what is next for you? What do you have those closing words, etc.?
Yeah, so I think some advice is always just ask for help. Communities like this are always so amazing because they foster such open, honest conversations. But it's also about reaching out to other accountants. I've done it so much, asking people what their software are, if they could share their pricing with me, because I didn't know what to include and what not to include. And do you just have quarterly updates but no self-assessment, or self-assessment and quarterly updates? There's so many queries, questions, concerns, and it's speaking honestly and open with everyone.
That's definitely what I'm going to do the accountants therapy plug again. Sorry, everyone, but that's definitely.
Thank you, Grace. Before Robyn goes into the plug,
yes,
thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Grace. Thank you, Jourdan. But that's exactly what we've had in accountants therapy. We've seen that being able to just ask those sense check questions, those kind of what do I, exactly as you said, what do I include in my pricing? How is everybody else approaching this, has been so helpful. And I say that, I know that accountants therapy is our thing that we head up, but the help I've had from other people when I'm trying to work out those kind of questions has been invaluable for me personally as well. And if anybody is listening and isn't part of accountants therapy already, you can take advantage of our free trial on our website. We'll pop the link in the chat. So now we're 4 o'clock. This is the point at which we're having a little celebration of the entire day. I can't believe we're already at 4 o'clock. For me, the day has gone very quickly. How about for you, Tom? Oh, he's muted though.
It's insane, to be honest. I from the absolute bottom of my heart, I never thought when I first started reaching out to people about doing this that everyone would be so keen to get involved. And I think looking at the screen now, trying to get emotional, I think it just sums up the community that is there in bookkeeping, accountancy, and taxation. I think we really are in that era now where we all need to work together to make our industry better, to facilitate better software, to facilitate better communications with clients, better valuing ourselves. It's incredible. And thank you to each and every one of you for attending, everybody that's shared on LinkedIn, everybody that's attended today. I'm exhausted, but it's probably been the most fun I've had for years sat in front of a computer. So thank you very much, everyone.
You're not allowed to be quite exhausted yet because we're meant to run till 5. So
I'm ready to go. I've just put sugar in my coffee, which I never do.
You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, I'm going to bounce off the walls in a bit.
It's gone. Right, so I have a question. Oh, Aaron's back there. Oh, beer.
Aaron's got beer.
Oh, he's good.
Be right back.
Right, everybody is allowed at any point in this hour to screen off and go and get themselves something tasty. Please allow yourself to do that. But I have got a question for everybody. If you I'm going to go with the negative again. I'm really, really sorry. It's just my favorite thing to do with MTD, but I'd like to know, but in a constructive way, if you could change one thing about MTD and the system and the way it's designed now, what would that one thing be? And I suppose I better tell you who I want to speak first because there's so many of us, but I'm going to go around my screen. So, Jourdan, you're the first one on my screen. What would you change about MTD, if anything?
Oh gosh, it's a tricky one. Obviously, coming from the software side of things, I pity all the accountants that have to deal with this. So I can't put in too much complaints there. Going back to my point that I first mentioned, I think just in regards to listing of HMRC recognized MTD softwares, just tightening down the regulation on that so that people know where to go, where not to go.
Nice answer. That's one wish list thing. Della is next on my screen.
Oh, blimey. Well, I'm expecting Craig Ogilvie to get his honour at some point. Some letters after his name.
Is that what you would change?
No, I think it'll happen anyway. What would I change? I would get rid of that silly 20,000 limit. It's below the, well, we were talking earlier, it's below the average wage, and we're talking income, not even profit. So it's, yeah, a bit daft.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's very, very sensible. Nick, you're next. Nick Paddenberg is next on my screen.
Yeah, I think you know where I'm going to come from with this one. Paddy time, extension on the filings. If that's just for the next 2 cohorts as a temporary measure, reducing down to the 5 weeks thereafter, I think that will take a lot of pressure off everybody, not just bookkeepers, accountants, individuals, but also software vendors and HMRC themselves.
Paddy time. Hashtag Paddy time MTD.
Yes.
Lindsay, you're next.
I'd say what ICAW's been saying consistently, and that is mandatory quarterly reporting. We're big fans of digital record keeping. We think it's going to add accuracy, efficiency into accounting and bookkeeping, but yeah, the costs and time associated with quarterly reporting, I think, you know, it's something that ICAW's consistently pushed back on.
Another thing that I think everybody's nodding at all of these points. We can repeat some of them by the time we get down to the last person here if you wanted. Natasha, you're next on my screen.
I think it's from a bookkeeper side. I want software providers, because some of them are fantastic, but some of them aren't, to recognise that bookkeepers can actually do this job as well. And I'm championing bookkeepers wholeheartedly, and that's the whole me. We've been seen as the secondary person, but like Kirsty is a good example. She can do the whole lot. I just choose not to do the whole lot. I can do the whole lot. I'm qualified to do the whole lot. But I think that some software providers have looked at us quite differently in that respect, and I want that change.
Sensible. Kirsty?
Oh gosh, yeah, following on from that, I'm probably going to steal Aaron's point, but I think making it mandatory to have a separate bank account, because I think, you know, I don't want to sit there and trawl through someone's Tesco's, Netflix, OnlyFans, whatever. I want to be given the information that's relevant to the business. Now, that's still on trust that they are giving us everything we need, but again, they're signing the bit of paper at the end of the day to say they have done that. So that would be my preference.
Nick Moss?
Mine's probably going to be quite unpopular. I'd have brought in quarterly payments on account at the outset. That's what I'd have done. Yeah. Get people into the...
It's coming, isn't it? I think we all agree it's coming.
I'm a fan of that.
Yeah, I think people would have found it much more stomachable to see that go hand in hand, because what do we like the least? Feeling like there's something unsaid. Something coming that we know is coming, but no one's going to be honest with us.
But it's also a bit fairer with the fact that everyone else is on PAYE and you've got to pay your tax bloody monthly. So come on, let's be fair about this thing.
Yeah, and we all know the main reason that, you know, a lot of small businesses fail in that second year is because they haven't budgeted for the tax, right? So
yeah.
So, you know, if you get them used to that,
making them put it separate,
Yeah, I just think it would have made the whole thing make sense to people from the start, rather than feeling like it's kind of to people right at the start feels a bit of a pointless task to some point. If there was one thing I would have changed, I'd have said bringing quarterly payments on account from the start. It would have got people into the right behaviours, in my opinion.
Question in the chat though: what would you have those quarterly tax payments based on? The quarterly submissions, or would you just drop the quarterly submissions and go straight for 4 payments on account based on previous year?
Yeah, I'd do that.
No, quarterly submissions.
Yeah,
Yes.
we could have gone without this whole MTD thing and just gone straight to 4 payments on account.
I think this seems to be something that splits people a little bit, doesn't it?
Well, it's for
Clients
VAT,
can't
doesn't it?
understand 2, never mind 4.
But it works for VAT. Like they understand that they've just had this X amount they've done in that period, so they've got to pay it.
Yeah.
And it's always in time then, isn't it?
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Then the tricky bit is that we've got the most complicated tax law in the world, that as soon as it diverges from something normal and easy, that actually making that estimate of the taxes is difficult. So basing it off what exactly is quite a valid question.
Didn't Brazil bring in a new tax regime where they just collect 20% tax on all of your income and then you sort it out later, didn't they? Did I hear that?
I mean, it's one way, isn't it? Just as flat rate on the income rather than reporting the expenses and do everything at year end. Wow, what a different system we would have already just going through these points. Stu, you're next.
Yeah, I think the point Kirsty made is probably the one I was going to make around the business bank account, but since that's been made, I'll make a more niche point. HMRC allows software providers to have a badge that says HMRC recognized, and you're allowed to do that if you subscribe to very little of their APIs, just maybe only the quarterly updates. I don't think you should be able to use that badge, nor listed on HMRC's website of software providers if you're nowhere near getting your tax return right, which many people are.
That's a popular point, and that is again another thing.
How do we combat those, Stu? Because we've been incredibly frustrated over the last 12 months seeing so many vendors saying we're MTD ready, but they're not on the HMRC recognised list. Like, it's very deceptive. How do we, as agents and software vendors, get HMRC to actually do something about this? Like, is there anything we can do?
I'm not sure there is, because if we didn't, the list would be very, very small indeed, and then the press for HMRC wouldn't look great, would it? If they're like, oh, we've gone to the private sector, but there's only like 3 people you can pick from. Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's on the software should have been better earlier, to be honest. I'm not sure that's on HMRC.
Yeah, okay.
Aaron, it's your turn.
Well, as most of mine have been stolen already, I had to consult Vinny.
Just copying Kirsty's now.
So,
what's Vinny saying?
So I asked Vinny, what was that again? Sorry, Vinny. Oh, you think there's a hashtag involved? Right. Okay. Yeah. So he's got a good point. We need our list back on the ACSA account. We need our client list back, and we need to go to Guernsey. We need to look at what they do, and they have this little fancy portal that tells you the status and gives you all these updates and everything else. Just hashtag, please let us have our list back.
That is.
Can we make it a bit of a shorter hashtag?
I don't see what's wrong with the one I gave, to be honest with you. Yeah.
So what do you want the hashtag to be? Because we will hashtag
client list. There we go.
We want list.
Yeah,
hashtag client list for Aaron, I think, is what it should be.
That was by far the most popular thing that was being said in the chat when we had HMRC on was, when can we have an ASA client list? When can we have it? I can see Chris is in the chat. Where are you? Chris, log in and join us on screen.
In flight, yay.
So, yeah, the ASA list they have been saying that is coming. It's just that they don't have a timeline. And definitely my perception of that is that it isn't as simple as we think for some reason. Does that mean there isn't the money there to fund the people to do it quickly? I don't know. But they have been saying for a while that they are well aware of hashtag we want client list, but they can't give us a time frame, so that's sad times, isn't it? But even with Vinny asking,
well, Vinny says has quite a cynical view on it, but I won't repeat it because obviously don't want to get him in trouble.
No, go and repeat it. That's what today's for.
Vinny's on the high level of respect. We can't go.
damaged free agent reputation. Take that swipe. Kevin,
are you recording still or not? Let's see how
we're recording, but if it takes me saying no, we're not recording for Aaron to give us his thoughts. Kevin, you're next. What would you change?
Yeah, hi. Just a reminder that OnlyFans can be an income as well as an expense. I would make sure that every software company has got a legally responsible, tax responsible officer to make sure their tax logic is sensible. I'm going to keep going though because they're good things as well. I would have better pre-population. I would have granular pre-population of things like interest and dividends rather than HMRC having a total. I'd want to know what bank and what source those dividends have come from. I would also have more flexible quarterly capability, so periodic. So effectively, some people could be moved between quarterly obligations to annual obligations. At the moment, if you set up a separate trade, it's really weird because the second trade is not in MTD. And the final one, if people are compliant and they're doing stuff on a good time, I would give them a reduction in their tax rate.
Oh, I like that.
Say that again, Kevin. If they're good, well-behaved people.
Yeah, I would lower the tax rate. If people are fully compliant and there's low burden in terms of administering everything, I would actually have a 1% or 2% reduction in the tax rate because effectively that incentivizes good behavior.
I love that.
But I think they're doing the opposite, aren't they? Because once agents come under this new regulation, if our own tax return is late, I don't just get the normal penalties, I stand to lose my entire livelihood.
I love the idea in theory. I think in practice, what you would have is something I've said for a long time when you charge a fee for sending information late, is that I always just ended up having clients on the phone going, I'm really sorry, but I can't do it by the date you've set, but can I still have the discount? And I think obviously you can't do that with HMRC if that ever happened, but you would just have like an incredible bit of time pressure for accountants, right? To do that work. You'd have what if you did, you would be so liable for whatever discount if you just couldn't fulfill it by that point. I love the theory. And Craig, you have joined us at just the right moment because we've just been asking everyone if you could change one thing about MTD, what would it be? And I've been going literally down my screen, and you are now next to tell us what would you change about MTD if there is anything you would change. And I suppose you don't have to answer. No, you have to answer the question.
So
even if you answer creative.
I would change the director. He's useless. No, I'm joking. That's a joke. Don't quote me on that. What would I change about MTD? As I say, like going back to the earlier point, I think that's not an announcement that I'm going anywhere. By the way, I'm not. So I think going back to what I think is the problem with MTD is that it's too late. I talked about this earlier. You address the root cause after the fact, and that's never a good thing to do with human beings. It's much better to train people up front to use an accountant, use a bookkeeper, do it yourself, but use the right tools. And so I think there's something about, if I had my time again, I probably would have thought about, how do you get it into the tax and business life cycle of how you start a business. It's part of it. And also I would get people using business bank accounts. They're the two things I would do that I think would be really cool. And some of that we can think of and we can influence as we move forward. But having my time again, I think they're the two things. Sometimes I think you try and correct the behaviour. That's harder than getting the behaviour right when people start up something new for the first time. Loads of people aren't businesses. Those that are businesses don't think they're businesses. They then don't even register by the right point, and they're already trading before they've spoke to a bookkeeper or thought about the tools they need or thought about the importance of. You get what I mean? I just think it's about starting off in the right foot. That's what I would have changed.
On that same vein, Craig, it would be really good to make sure that people who set up limited companies as directors, they understand their responsibilities and they just don't go merrily spending all the money thinking it's theirs, understanding that difference. Because again, that's partly the mess that we have to unpick when they finally get round to seeing us is it's not your money, you know? And so I think if you could kind of almost make it right, you start a limited company, fine, here's your list of responsibilities that you need to know you've got to do, and make sure people fully understand that before they can proceed with setting up a company, which might stop accountants setting up companies, so apologies for that. But my point is, they need to understand that responsibility, I think.
General education would be great. No, I don't think that's controversial. The amount of times you have to explain to somebody with sometimes multiple limited companies that their limited companies are a separate legal entity is frightening, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, and they use this money to pay that bill, and it's like, just don't.
Yeah.
But as accountants, once they've come to us, we've just got it all on a help sheet, and we've got courses. You know, I do a 2-day finance for non-finance directors. You're talking about the governance and things like that, but they don't know about that until they come to the accountant, which takes us back to Craig's first point. So accountants can do an awful lot of that education thing.
It's just in finding the people that will pay for that and see the value in it in the first place, which takes us full circle, really, doesn't it? On the MTD point.
Just last thing, because I've had a tiny bit of reflection time. I think the other thing is I'm really proud of where we've got to. I know we've got a massive job, right? And I talked about that earlier, but we've got more to do than has been done. That all said, I think the other thing I found challenging was getting real tax expertise into the team too late in the day. So if I was in for the start, I would have co-created it deeper with the industry. And I tried to get in some brilliant bookkeepers and accountants, and it was so difficult. And luckily, the industry helped me. I've got the wonderful Sam Wood. I've got some Victor who heads up the external teams, a qualified accountant. But having that true up-to-date digital tax knowledge, I think that's a sort of beautiful set of skills that we never get in early enough. So I think that's my other reflection. I wouldn't change anything, but I would co-create earlier and bring the industry more into the room earlier. That would be something I would reflect on.
Do you think Craig, that reflection is going to move forward with the invoicing, though, Craig? Do you think that HMRC is going to look at this and go, right, what can we learn from MTD? E-invoicing is going to come in and say 2029. What should we be doing now to get ready?
I think yes, and probably no, because I think Jen's heading up, and she's probably the most passionate co-creator I know. She's incredibly headstrong, stronger-minded than I. Kevin and others know her, so she's got the right ethos. I think my slight worry is, like anything in life, time runs out really quickly. So you find yourself in a position where you bake things in that you don't mean to because it's just the nature of time rolling on. So I think the will's there. I think the thing we've got, which is phenomenal, and I really mean this, is, and Kevin knows the permanent secretary pretty well, he is very much driving a behaviour of working in the open. Like he is definitely open, and he's asking his directors and other senior colleagues to have a mindset of co-creation, working in the open. We can't do that with everything. If there's a budget secret thing, I can't tell Robyn, or else I'd get a P45, etc. We know that, but I think there's something about that top-down mindset of saying, MTD have started to make this better. We want to continue on this vein. The final thing is we'll get things wrong still because we're a huge organisation. Human nature is you don't get things right all the time. So we do need some patience with us as we change that mindset, that when we don't get it wrong, it's better to try and influence and talk to us rather than throw things at us and shout at us. I think that's the other bit of advice I'd give people. Get involved early and encourage for the inside, influence for the inside. Don't, the way that you guys have done, I think, has been a really great example of it.
Lovely. Thank you. So, okay, let's go for the other side of it. If you were to keep one thing about MTD, what would you keep? Della, you're first. Della goes first. I'm going around my screen. You go wait, Craig. You're at the end of my screen.
I'm going to eat some of my lunch if that's okay. While I do that.
Yeah.
You're making out you're working hard, Craig.
Yeah, he's good at that.
Or Sam's off posting.
I read that in your book.
So what would I keep? I as I said earlier, for those who were here then, I like the principle of digital records, up-to-date bookkeeping, and using software. It's things I was already pushing my clients to do. And so I use the carrot of all the business reasons why it's best. And so I love that HMRC came along with the big stick. And I've told you already the major problem with it is the size at which it was introduced. But the principle I'm all for. So yeah, I would keep it, but tweak it, but we're too late to tweak it. So
Nick, you're next. Nick Paddenberg is next.
So yeah, those that know me well, Tom, Robyn, I think Craig more so nowadays. I am a huge softie. I really am. I got very emotional when I submitted my first quarterly update. The relief that I had that it worked. It was like a huge cathartic release. So for me, it's just been meeting people and working together. Craig touched on what would he change and working with people much earlier in the day. For me, my experience on my journey, being together, meeting people, software vendors, people at HMRC, others in industry has been really, heartfelt and amazing for me.
Lindsay's next.
I would say I've really enjoyed the community of Making Tax. It has brought together lots of people. So professional bodies have worked together. We've worked with HMRC. We've worked with the software vendors. So I'd like to see that more, and hearing from agents and practitioners on the ground really does help inform those conversations as well. So it's the community aspects for future developments. Let's bring that to it.
Natasha?
I think it's supercharged our whole industry. So whether you're for it or like you against it, it's brought us all closer together, and it's made kind of like bookkeepers and accountants really appreciate each other and work together to find the solution. And then the software vendors, and then they've just supercharged their tools to make us be kind of really superheroes to our clients. So I think it's the fact that it has actually put us all on another level now.
Kirsty?
Yeah, I think back to the days when I used to go into a client's and there was always the scary HMRC pile, or there was always the stuff that they just didn't want to deal with, and we are still that face of save us from this thing. And so yeah, whether it's bookkeepers or accountants, I think it's just reinforced our position that we're here to help and we can navigate this process for them, and don't worry, we'll sort it. But yeah, it is an opportunity, and I think it's increasing our value to them if they're willing to pay. But that's the problem. It's not free.
Yeah. I have to say, Natasha, you said about me being against MTD. I suppose I still am. But hearing all the nice points about it, you can't deny there are positive things to say about MTD, just as much as I think we would all, including Craig, say that there are some negatives there that need ironing out, or that could have been ironed out previously. I think it's nice to see, and as you've said, that thought that we could be there for clients, that we are there for each other, and that we can acknowledge those differences and use it to strengthen the industry going forward. I'm sitting and I'm thinking, I am actually really enjoying hearing all your positive points, and I never thought I would say that.
But where else would you find us all sat down together here, spending a whole day talking about it and resonating with everybody's all their little quips they've had, with the software providers jumping in as well and showing us the tools that they're going to make our lives easier, to make the clients' lives easier. You've never had that kind of engagement before as a community of what we're trying to do it all together, and we're not alone.
Love. There we go. Nick Moss, you're next.
I've enjoyed that it's given additional people in the industry have a lot to say and add to the accounting community platform to kind of showcase that, whether it be yourself, Robyn, and Tom with the accountants therapy, but also with the amazing community and platform that you say, Aaron, you've built over the years with Ask the Accountant, being able to showcase what the likes of Susanna that we heard from this morning, Amy Hancock, and voices that have a lot to say and have our rights to be heard, right, with the information that they have to give. So without the changes in the industry that the MTD has brought about, it's brought a lot of interesting and knowledgeable people to the fore that we otherwise wouldn't have heard from, that I think is really, really useful to have.
Stu, you're next.
Yeah, I think it has to be the relationships from my perspective. I've maybe got a two-part answer, but from a vendor perspective, this has been a really nice catalyst as to create bridges between software that had originally been seen as competitors that are actually working together. Like a couple of names, and you know the bromance with me and Nick from Tax Calc already, which is around MTD, right? Not before that, but even people like Chris Downing, I've got to know so well because of this stuff, and there just isn't like a rivalry there. It's right, we're all in the same boat, and that's just way beyond anything I could have expected. But I'm a little disappointed no one's been too controversial. I've got a controversial take that Tom Bickle you won't like. Is I think the best thing for me about MTD really is the digitalization of it. And I'm not so sure spreadsheets should still be part of this, if I'm honest. I love that it's a step towards digitalization, so I wouldn't block them. But I would be nervous about doing what we did with that, which was like, oh, you can use bridging, but then it's only temporary, but then it's never temporary. It's still a thing today. So I like the step towards it, but I think I'd be a bit more digital. But hey, look, I'm a vendor, so there's your bias.
It's all right, guys. I'm just clicking those 3 buttons and removing him from the chat now.
No, I think we need this kind of conversation to happen. And for me to respond to that, it would be, I think a lot of the time we forget what the purpose of making tax digital has been from HMRC. It's to close the tax gap. It's to reduce the amount of tax that's evaded. I have got clients who, for decades, have kept spreadsheets, and they have kept really good digital accounting records. And they have got an additional burden in changing all of that. They've got an education, they've got all of those things to do. And for them, MTD does not benefit them one bit. However, yes, for a lot of people moving forward, digitalization is going to be a game changer. Like I said earlier, the generations that are coming through now, I think it's kind of like, the smoking ban that's come in. People will move away from spreadsheets now naturally because they will find that the software is better. They can get more information out of it. There's more automation. That time will come naturally. And I think we needed to keep spreadsheets open for a period of time for that generation that have been using spreadsheets for 40, 50 years, that have been doing their taxes legally and compliantly, to be phased out. And then eventually everybody will be on digital accounting software anyway, because it'd just be natural. I don't see why in 10 years, I mean, how much of us now, raise your hand, regularly use cash? I cannot remember the last time I paid for anything in cash. It's got to be probably COVID time. And I think that's just a natural evolution we're going through. So I think we've got to keep spreadsheets now, but in 10 years time, will people still be choosing to use spreadsheets? Probably not.
I mean,
spreadsheets are still sexy.
It's fair, but we would have said that about VAT, I think, Tom, in my perspective, and we're still using spreadsheets for MTD for VAT. Put it this way, I think MTD is a good digitalization change. I think e-invoicing is going to be a massive leap, way bigger for digitalization than MTD. If we've still got millions of people on spreadsheets, that's going to be even more worse. So that's what I was meaning about kind of phasing it out slowly.
But I think as well, with that, the VAT for MTD is very different to what we're doing now. Those VAT returns, everyone was still preparing VAT back then and submitting them through the government gateway.
When did that happen? I was on a
29
research session earlier and I couldn't remember what year it was.
It was mandatory 2022, wasn't it?
Right, okay. So, but you're right, because we were already doing the VAT, it didn't feel as shocking or horrific or anything. And RTI we'd already done, so, it was easy.
Yeah. We did it in two spells from then into 2022. The thing is, you say most people were on a quarterly stagger, so you're not changing the rhythm as much.
Yeah.
The interesting thing, talking about Louise's point about the benefits, and people are really dubious about the benefits case. Like Tom's described, people with good records that maybe don't match the MTD formula for good records, and they'll have a hurdle. Over a macro amount of this system, the record standard and record quality keeping is not good enough, right? And I could love to bring you in HMRC and just show you, right? Because I can see the whole system.
Oh, I know, trust me, as an accountant, you don't need to show me.
So when you take that as a macro thing and you take the leap of faith that better record keeping by it being more regular, so there was a debate to say then, well, actually VAT was already largely digital and it was in quarters, so you won't be able to achieve 4 billion by the end of the scorecard, or you won't. There was a peer assessed piece of work that looked at cases independently for VAT that scored that actually MTD also drove the same positive behaviour. So the premise and the jump is so much bigger with income tax in that it's about 5 times the technical scale, technical complexity, but then the customer behaviour changes through the roof. So VAT is a walk in the park. I think for me, sorry, I won't jump ahead, Ron, but like going out to lots of firms, what I've seen is that VAT provided a legal mandate for firms to invest in their systems as well. And I think that across the whole country made a huge difference. And it'll be different for some of you, it might not have done, and in different areas it will swing and balance. But actually, the amount of people that had to invest in better digital tooling to make MTD for VAT work actually had a lot more spin-offs and productivity benefits than the business case for MTD ever suggested it would. And we only understood that post-evaluation.
And I do think, Craig, you are making a move to try and get 2 positive points in about MTD here, which is very clever. It's not allowed. I will give you one that how can such a system create the situation where, wow, someone is prepared to come to an all-day marathon in a kilt on the hottest day of the year. So
it's genius.
All day. Well done, Stu. Amazing.
We don't know he's still wearing it, and I don't want to look.
Do you know the Natasha thing? Like, I've thought about it, but I've never heard it so well described. Is it just that we're in a bubble, right? Because, or is this happening at mass across the whole industry and at different levels, right? Because there's about 1,000 people I interact with where I've seen that. I can see it and I can feel it. There's about, I don't know, 5,000 people that interact that are slightly further away. I think it is exactly as Natasha describes, and that's something that can only happen if human beings get together and do human being like things. But it's been absolutely amazing for that perspective to see how it has brought people together. I think there'll be transitional pain, of course there will, but we will sit here in 5 years' time. And I could not imagine, I've used this analogy all the time, I couldn't imagine running the tax system without RTI. I know it's still got issues. I know people will give me data issues, and yeah, I get it, right? RTI isn't perfect, but I still go to the OECD and deal with countries across the world that still look at RTI as an exemplar. But this will be something that we look back at and say, there was some traditional pain, absolutely. There was cost, but in the long run, this will be a good thing.
Thank you, Craig. Is that your move to try and get 3 positive MTD points in, or are you done? Because I'm not coming back to you now.
Pro here,
this
isn't
is yeah, this is.
I forgot what my actual
No,
positive.
No, you're not.
Cut it off.
No. The next person is Aaron. Aaron's turn.
Well, I get to do 2 though, right? Because I've got mine and I got Vinny's, so that's fair,
That's
right?
fair.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
as long as Vinny's one's really controversial.
Oh, mine's controversial. His is
good.
like, because I've got to keep him, tip top, right? My controversial one is, thank God that everyone's looked at Zero and gone, it's just not that good, right? But in a serious point, the industry has opened their eyes, right? And they're looking at different software solutions, different things and everything else. And yes, I'm being facetious about the 0 point. But even as the QuickBooks chap, I don't just use QuickBooks for MTD solutions. I'm looking elsewhere.
It's because they've nicked it from you.
Sorry. Hence why I'm on the beer. But yeah, look, that is a net positive for the whole industry. Like, everyone's opened their eyes. They've looked at what's out there, what's the right solution for the right clients. The embedded solution that Chris Downing and the Sage team's done, and all that sort of stuff. There's the positive for me that I absolutely love. And Vinny raised a great point. His point is that he loves the fact that the vendors are taking that and going to that innovation, taking the next step, because you've got the likes of Free Agent that are bringing in CIS income and helping us be able to deal with that. That's a massive pain point we all have, right? Like, CIS is such a painful place that we want to get it right, want to get it everything else, want to make sure that clients don't get delayed in their repayments, etc., etc. And just that simple idea that information can flow in, and then we can have confidence it's going to be right, and we can make sure when it's submitted that everything's going to cross tick and everything else. Absolutely love that. And what I think kind of my main point around that is that I think we've got a real opportunity to see how this can be good for everyone, and how we can see that there's better options out there. And I really want people to, like, the vendors, to be fighting each other and trying to. I mean, at the moment there's only a couple in the race, but I'm hoping the rest catch up and they start fighting, and we see better solutions for everyone. And it gets to that point where, and I know this is ludicrous, but I still want to get to that point where I'll look at a client and I'll go, you know what, they're not mandatory to be MTD at this point, but they're going to be better off being MTD, and I'm going to voluntary put them forward because they're going to have a better experience. Like that to me is the end goal of where I think MTD can be really, really beneficial for us.
Well, that
Just
happened
on
with
that,
Susanna,
Aaron,
didn't it?
Sorry,
Yeah.
that was Vinny.
How many of your new clients do we go, yeah, do you know the best system for you is a cash book? When was the last time anyone said go to, like, well, it's not Smith's anymore, go to Smith's and buy a cash book? None of us are doing it. We are just mopping up the older clients that are using the old system. So I think you're absolutely spot on.
And I just, Robyn, you'll kill me, right? Only because I need to run away because Peter's asking me to talk about paddy time, right? But other than that, that isn't why I'm running away. Like my really good thing is a really exciting thing, and I'm annoyed at myself that I've gave away the two other good things. So can I buy some? I don't know.
You want one more point, do you, Craig? But if
point.
you want one more
And then
point, you've got to
I'll
say
run.
hashtag paddy time MTD, and then you can do your point.
Hashtag I disagree vehemently with paddy time MTD.
We tried,
But
guys.
you know what it is? Let's see, for me, the big win here is data, right? And I know you don't always love pre-population, right? But the real win here is having a system where we can properly, in a modern world, pre-populate better data. So you do less work. You can check and change if you don't like it. So you still get flexibility and nudging you to get it right. They two things are the thing that gets me out of bed about MTD when all said and done. And actually, over and above the exchequer gains that Louise and I will be fighting about in the next time we catch up, and we can agree to disagree. I absolutely respect your position, Louise. But there is a whole host of actually how you can start to make tax more effective, make it easier because you use data much better. That's the big win for MTD over the long run. And I'll leave you with that thought. And boo paddy time, but I'll leave you with that. So.
Any publicity is good publicity. Thanks for that, Craig.
Thanks everyone. I'm going to dash because I've got a one-to-one with my boss before I finish up. I'm 10 minutes late, so I'll get in trouble.
So we better go to Gemma.
I do have a boss, as we worked out later. I don't just get
tell him we all approve. Whatever you suggest, we all approve.
Yeah, Gemma's next, so watch out, Craig.
Yeah.
Gemma is my boss. That's who I was talking about. No, I'm joking. Anyway, I'll see you later.
Bye, Craig.
Can we come to Kevin next? Is that okay? Kevin next, and then Gemma. So, Kevin, one good thing about MTD that you would keep?
Recognizing that we are all human beings. And I know that sounds a little bit bizarre, but so often when we talk to HMRC in the past, and we do it as agents and as software developers, we get a very corporate, faceless response. And what's happened now with Making Tax Digital is we actually talk to human beings. And we saw that with Craig just now. We may disagree, but we can be honest about the issues that we've got. And there has been
you can be funny about them too, right? This is one thing that's really nice. We can do it with a bit of humour.
Like a few years ago, when there were issues, there was a key moment, and other developers will remember this moment, where we all went to Leeds. And as a developer, we had been saying, this isn't working, that isn't working. And HMRC would give a corporate response. And suddenly, for the first time, it was during COVID, we all sat down and realized that we were all facing exactly the same issues. I can't remember, Stuart, were you there at that meeting?
Yeah, Ben and I were from Pre-Agent.
And it was just a real penny drop moment, I think, for many of us. And the people there from Apari, from Untied, from Sage, and Xero and others. And since then, I think HMRC has really worked to recognize that there are human beings on both sides, that we can have a genuine conversation. And we're not talking to a block, which is a policy block, but actually we're talking about real people. But in terms of digital records, I just wanted to share this, which is something I still keep, which is my original accounting digital records. I've gone through various iterations of this. If anyone has got some 5.25, 3.5, and of course the more recent DVDs. I've got no idea what the rules are for keeping 35-year-old tax records, but if anyone wants an Arthur Anderson and Co. Limited edition 5.25-inch floppy disk, then available from Untied.
Brilliant. A lot of love for what you've just said there, Kevin, in the chat. Well done. Gemma, to you.
Hello. I have been chuckling since I had my session at 3 o'clock, because I know that I said the word, it takes a village. I don't know where the village word came from, but I mean community. This is a really strong community. And I think we've all said that we don't always agree. it's a safe place to challenge though, and I think we all give each other food for thought, and I really do get a lot from that. And like I say, the golden thread for me is always hearts and minds of people and that human approach and making sure that we're not just scary tax people. And we did find that with some people bringing them in and to MTD events, they were like, oh God, this is so scary, coming into a tax office and speaking with tax people. Like, you know, have you got our national insurance numbers before we walk through the door? And it's like, no, we don't. And by the time that they left that room, it was like we were all friends and you all knew each other personally and you know that person's name, and then you'll see them on LinkedIn or you'll see them at an industry event and you say hello, or they'll come and give you a hug. And it is a community of people, and I really love the credibility of that. Everybody who has a voice really offers value in the conversation. Like I say, whether it's right, wrong, indifferent, everybody is credible, professional, and it really makes a huge difference. And it makes me excited to see how far we've come and what's next.
It's really good that you're listening to us as an industry. I know that you know, the software guys, you've had a very different experience to us because you're like direct links. HMRC has been so dependent on your support, whereas for us as agents, there's so many of us, but I feel like we're being listened to, and that's been a big difference. And going to the stand at HMRC last week at Accountex, it's those sort of interactions that make a big difference. That I think, if I was going to say one benefit, it has been that I've never felt more supported by my professional body, by my colleagues, by HMRC than I've ever felt as an accountant. I actually feel like I can get support wherever I need it now. So that's the biggest benefit for MTD. Enough of this soppy stuff. Anyway, MTD.
Yeah. Do you know what?
We're trying to burn the computers down today, weren't we?
Yeah. Okay. So the thing I would keep is that the computers are going to burn down on the 7th of August. No, I'm joking. So what would be the thing that I would keep? The community. Obviously, I'm going to have to say that again. That feeling that industry has shifted a little to listen a bit more, to engage with our professional bodies. For me personally, that thought that my professional body does want to hear what I have to say, and that learning about how to communicate with the professional body. I popped it in the chat earlier, but learning that professional bodies really need concrete examples of the things that are going both right and wrong. Because going and just moaning at them doesn't help. It needs to be a concrete example of this is the time it took me because something isn't working. And then they can amalgamate and represent us in front of HMRC and make a business case about why this is wasting everybody some time and why this is wasting money. So that kind of thing, I think is so valuable, because that doesn't just touch the MTD space, that touches our entire industry and everything that we touch as agents, and for software as well. I'm sure it's the same, that anything that is feeding into that experience, if we can get those concrete examples and learn how to use the system that exists to make it a system that we like, then that's going to benefit everybody, isn't it? I can't believe we've only got 10 minutes left. I have one last question.
I
was going to say,
I feel like we should end on controversy corner or something.
Oh,
I was
going to be non-controversial.
You know, with controversy corner. But yeah, I don't know. Anyone got anything controversial? A controversial take on MTD that many people might not have thought of? Aaron, straight away.
So I want to know, and I kind of already touched on it before, but why are we not including close dividends and you know, everything else we can think of? Why don't we just put everything into making tax? Let's do all quarterly submissions for everything, so that all our self-assessments go down one path, just to make it super easy on us. Is that not what everyone agrees with?
Yeah, it would be a pain in the arse. That's why. But
it was discussed at the initial consultation I was in.
Yeah, it sounds like a great idea to me. And we'll just put everything in. We've got software to do it. I mean, AI is going to do it all for us anyway, right? So we don't even need to do any work. But everyone's down the same route. We all do quarterly submissions. Everyone's happy then. We don't have this whole, are you in or you're out? Shaky, all that sort of thing. We're all in MTD. Pull the plaster off. Let's do it for... In fact, let's backdate. We've just backdated 55p. So let's backdate everyone now. Everyone's mandated for MTD from now. So we just go in and we all just submit by the 7th. What do you think? I've solved MTD for you. It's pity Craig's not already here. Do you know what I mean?
How many beers, Aaron?
Too many. And we did ask for controversy.
Well, is this a HMRC question or is this a software question? That's what I would like to know. Is it that HMRC don't think that that's possible. Could the software vendors, Stu, Nick, Kevin, could the software do this?
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. I just think that point is a really good one, Aaron. And what I would probably do is I would probably say that for some people the obligation is annual for certain things, and for others it's quarterly. But everyone submitting through one system in a consistent way makes an awful lot of sense. And it is a little bit worrying if HMRC is having to, from their point of view, maintain multiple systems. So I agree, let's just bring it in, but the obligations depend on exactly who you are, how large your income level is, whatever. But I would do it all through one system. And particularly we're looking at a new platform for those who are earning under £3,000 from trading income, and all the complications and confusion, whether that's a misunderstanding about the relation with the trading allowance. I just put it through one thing. I would put that through software. There may be some software which is procured and commissioned by HMRC to do it, but from amongst the existing vendors. But I would move to an environment, this is perhaps a controversial line, where HMRC is building an awful lot less software for the front end and working more collaboratively and closely with those of us on the outside in order to do things quicker and more efficiently.
Lots of nods there. So
on top of that, then, do you think everyone should do a tax return? Because we've had this question before, Robyn, haven't we? Do you think we should just say forget the threshold for reporting? Do you think everyone should just do tax returns?
Well, that would make sense with the whole, if you're either on PAYE system or you're on the thingy system, and there's no getting away with are you really under or not?
I mean, TurboTax would like it, wouldn't they? That's how they made their money in the States. They'll be happy.
It's a very popular opinion on accountant therapy that would sort a lot of the problems that we see in the existing system. If you could just have a tax return that overwrites everything and everybody knows that you just got to do that every single year. I'm not sure what the practicalities of that from HMRC side of things are, because that's a hell of a lot more going on than it is now. But yeah. I'd like to say I mean, maybe I support it because I'm a tax advisor, but I actually do think that would make sense. Maybe I support it because I am a tax advisor with a professional opinion on it. Kevin, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, so I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to cue actually for my controversial opinion, which is slightly different, which is that we have a highly complex system, which is partly because we're bringing a whole lot of legacy stuff around across married couples alliance and that sort of stuff. So what I would probably look to do, this is my controversial thing, is to say, right, we've got to actually move forward. Let's have a moratorium where we agree for everyone in the country a historic tax position, whatever that might be. And then that is one number which is in an account. And then that allows us to have a simpler tax system going forward without bringing the interaction of all sorts of complicated history into new systems. So we can build something really clean, really elegant. And you look at the way the countries like Estonia have succeeded, it's because they haven't had this broad legacy of 80 years of things which they've now got to migrate into a new environment. So that would be my controversial thing.
Any other controversial opinions, or I have got one more question for you.
I was going to say, I agree with Kevin on that, and it would be great to lift the lid on the tax system and actually say, if you were digitising a tax system, what should the rules be? Because digitising what we've got now is really hard.
Like it. Della?
Sort of building on the software systems and HMRC's big legacy systems that are too fragile to change. But I think that is the major problem with HMRC is the systems. I would say the people. I've been doing this for 30 odd years, and in all that time, I've only dealt with one person at HMRC who wasn't trying to be helpful. So that's controversial. One person in 30 odd years. The people are good. The software is not so good.
And the funding is not adequate.
Yeah. Is this all calls for privatization of the HMRC systems? Is that what we're saying?
No.
So I had a controversial take on this years ago, in that the thought process was you have two arms of accountants and tax advisors, one arm which is serving the public and one arm which is serving HMRC, and people could choose which one they went down, and it was privatization basically of inquiries into the tax system. And because HMRC is so hit and miss with what they could do, and it was whether there was the fairness that everybody was being treated equally. That was one hot take, and the other one is just completely rip up the rule book. If we know the massive corporations are not paying taxes in the UK, then the system's wrong and the system has to change. That would be my hot take.
Okay, so can I ask my very last question just to round up the whole day, because we've got 6 minutes left. So in as short a time as possible, if you could tell me one, or tell our audience now and anyone listening after on the recording, one bit of advice in regards to making tax digital, what would your advice be, Della? Della, do you want to go first? I'm sorry, I realise that that's hard when I just launch a question and go, you can go first. One bit of advice.
I think I'd generally be the way we've approached it is the one-to-many approach. It's trying to train all our clients. Whatever we do, we'll do one webinar and record it and explain everything to everyone in one go as far as possible, or a help sheet. In July, we're having a single webinar to get everybody to, it won't answer all the questions, but 80%. So one-to-many training as far as possible.
Like that. Well, for anybody, again, that isn't part of our cancer therapy, we produced a client-facing one that can be used, and that is available on our YouTube channel for anybody that wants a webinar just to send out to people with information and not sales in it, if you would like. So who's next? Lindsay's next.
I would say keep asking questions, because until we get the questions, we don't know what's missing or what people are misunderstanding.
Nice one. Kirsty?
I think it's been really interesting working with the software vendors. I was on the sort of beta trial for the QuickBooks and able to feedback some bits and pieces and done various webinars. I think it's really nice to be listened to, as a bookkeeper in the software day in, day out. So actually it's strengthening those relationships with the vendors, and agreeing Della's point about educating clients. Really, it's difficult.
Stu?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of sales thing I could say. I'll say a very honest, personal thing. I just have to say that tax has been getting more digital. This is another step. It's only going to get more digital. You just have to do it. There's just no other option than to do it. Because, as I said before, as e-invoicing coming in, it's a huge next change after that. So you just have to get started.
Doesn't the e-invoicing, from what it only applies to limited companies, doesn't it? Or is it coming for individual VAT people too?
It's definitely VAT registered and above.
Yeah, but I thought it was only companies. I wasn't sure it was people. As in sole traders. I don't know. I might well have got that wrong, but
I understood that it's sole traders, but we'll get back to you on that. We're planning to help people in that way as soon as we can. So watch this space.
Therapy, yes.
Yeah, no, we certainly. I mean, look, we've got something like 20 subgroups. E-invoicing therapy is surely going to come.
I will just point out as well, I had a conversation yesterday with a good friend of mine, Richard Sargent. We have booked our first e-invoicing update for September, and then we've got another one straight after November. And we only agreed that yesterday. So Richard, sorry for announcing that. But we will be looking for some software vendors to jump in on that call with us. And it's more about information at that point. Where are we with e-invoicing? What's the timeline? How is it going to work? And that will be done in September and November. So if anyone wants to get involved, let me know.
Start that conversation as soon as possible, because we don't need to recover from MTD first. We're just going to go straight in. Who's next? Kevin, you're next.
I can't remember the question. Remember the question? I've got
one bit of advice. One bit of advice you give people on MTD.
On MTD, I would probably say look around. I would say this: look around at sort of other software options, because the need of a sole trader is very different from others in self-assessment, and the view before that we want everything all in one place, I fully support. I would also say just keep an eye out for what's happening in multi-factor authentication, because what you don't want to do is be locked out of your HMRC accounts when the time comes.
That's a really good reminder for me to say that Lindsay Scott, lovely Lindsay from the CIOT, has had given me a little update that the ATT and the CIOT are going to produce some more guidance on multi-factor authentication next week with HMRC. I don't know if this is part of your scope, Gemma, but with HMRC looking at timelines and publishing them separately at some point soon. So there will be more information on multi-factor authentication very, very soon. You can keep an eye on the CIOT. I'm sure that the ICAW also has some stuff coming up. We're so close to 5 o'clock, Gemma. One very quick bit of advice you give to anyone?
Keep talking to us and sign up. That's as quick as it can be.
Perfect. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for the MTD Marathon Live. We have reached that point where we are about to close. This could not have happened without the enormous collaboration of everybody involved, and without people being willing to come and watch and chat, etc. So a big thank you from me. Over to you, Tom.
Exactly the same sentiment. Honestly, the last 13, 14 months has been an absolute roller coaster. MTD, I think, has brought so many more people together as a community, and I think that's only going to continue growing. I've got a huge amount of admiration and respect and thanks for every single one of our guests, for everybody that's tuned in. Thank you so much. And a very, very special shout out as well to a few people that couldn't be here today. That's Emma Rawson, who's been an incredible part of our journey with MTD therapy and with MTD and with everything that she does. A huge thank you to Sam Wood for recording that video for us last week. It's a shame that he couldn't make it today, but we all love you, Sam. Thank you very much. And then finally, thank you to Robyn, because as usual, I came up with a really mad idea, and rather than Robyn going, "Are you stupid?" she said, "Yeah, how do we make this happen?" So a massive thank you to Robyn. It was honestly one of the most proud moments of my life last year, seeing her lift up that award with Emma last week. So well done to Robyn, well done to Emma, and well done to everybody that has tuned in today. You are not alone. We will get MTD done. We will smash it. And all the best, guys. Have a great bank holiday weekend.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.